A very good afternoon to all the students. Welcome to this live virtual class for paper 3B, Goods and Services Tax. And today's topic is time of supply. I am CA Shafali Jain and I am a faculty at Board of Studies for Indirect Taxes. And I will be taking this session today. So I want all of you to be participative in this session. Throw your queries, be with us throughout the session, and you will understand the concept of time of supply in entirety, I can assure you. But you have to participate in the class. So whatever, this class should be very interactive. Whatever strikes to your mind, put it in the chat box, ask your queries. And then when we are solving some question, then you should respond to those questions also. That will help you in understanding the concept. So let us start with the provisions of time of supply. But before we understand or we start with the concept of time of supply, I want you to know the importance of time of supply or why the time of supply provisions are important. So for that, we'll first of all go through the cycle of GST, that how a transaction or an activity, when it is started and it ends up with turning into GST liability. So this whole cycle we'll go through and then we will see where the time of supply actually lies. So we are starting with this. A minute, let me see. Okay. So yes, so the first step in determining the GST liability for any activity or transaction is that transaction or activity should take place. So let us assume that a business or a businessman has undertaken a transaction or an activity. What activity he has undertaken? He has supplied some goods to a buyer and that buyer has provided him some consideration in return. Now, what would be the next step? So when we are in the GST cycle, when we are in the GST net, then we have to, what steps we have to follow? Why I am telling you this? So that you can understand why we are determining or understanding the time of supply provisions and what all we have done till now, why we have done those provisions. So the second step will be whether the given activity or transaction qualifies as supply under Section 7 of the CGST Act 2017. Now, for that, you have done in your earlier classes where the supply under GST concept was being discussed, that activity or transaction should qualify as supply under Section 7, read with Schedule 1, 2, and 3, and the relevant circulars and notifications. So once we consider that particular transaction is for a consideration, it qualifies business test, it is for goods or services, supply is of goods or services, and it is qualifying as supply within the parameters of Section 7, then the activity qualifies as supply. So if suppose a business has undertaken a particular transaction or activity and that activity qualifies as supply, so then we have to move forward in the GST cycle. Otherwise, we'll stop here. So we'll not move further. We'll say GST is not applicable. No need to go into the GST provisions. But when we see that yes, that activity is qualifying as supply, we move further. Now, in the next step, we'll see whether the GST is leviable on that particular supply. Now, for that, we'll see the charging section. And in that case, the charge of GST chapter comes into the picture. So you have done charge of GST chapter also. There you saw that whether the tax will be paid on the reverse charge or tax will be paid under forward charge. Who is the person who will be paying GST? And first of all, we'll see whether the particular supply is within the charging section or not. So if it is alcoholic liquor for human consumption, then it is outside the charging section. So GST will not be leviable on that, though it is a supply. Similarly, if petroleum products are there, then petroleum products will not be leviable to GST because they will be levied to GST from a date to be notified, and that date has not yet been notified. Okay, so if this is your case, then in that case GST will not be levied. But if you are not producing alcoholic liquor for human consumption, you are not supplying any petroleum products, then generally your supply will fall within the charging section and therefore it would be leviable to GST. So now once your supply is leviable to GST, so you have qualified second step also, that is charge of GST. Okay. Now we come to the third step. Third step, in fact, this will be simultaneous to the second step only. That next is we have to determine the place of supply, that where this supply shall be deemed to have been supplied. Why this place of supply is required? Because once a supply is leviable to GST, we have to see the jurisdiction, and because of this jurisdiction, we will be able to determine whether this supply is an interstate supply or an intrastate supply. Okay, because place of supply helps us in determining the nature of supply, that is interstate supply or intrastate supply. So therefore, after determining the nature of supply, that yes, this particular supply is interstate or intrastate, then we'll come to the next step. Now, what is the next step? Your supply is leviable to GST. You have understood that yes, this is an interstate transaction or it is an intrastate transaction, as the case may be. Now, the next step would be whether it is exempt under any of the exemption notifications under GST. So what you have to see is you have to see the list of exempted supplies, and we have separate notifications for the intrastate and for the interstate. So we have to see both the exemption list, but depending on which type of supply we are making. We have determined the nature of supply. So now we'll go to the relevant exemption list. If our supply is an interstate supply, then we'll see the exemption list pertaining to the interstate supply. And when our supply is an intrastate supply, then we will see the exemption list for the intrastate supply. So after seeing the list of exempted supplies, if our supply is not covered in any of the exemption list, then what does it implies? It implies that the supply is not exempt under GST and GST is payable on the supply which you are making. Okay. Now you know that you have to pay GST on your supply. Now the next question which arises, at what point of time the liability to pay GST arises? That means at which point of time I can say that yes, this is the time when I would become liable to pay GST. Though I might deposit that tax on a later point of time, but at this point of time, it will become a decided event, or it will be decided that yes, I have to pay GST on this particular on the happening of a particular event. Now, what would be that event? That we would be seeing in time of supply. So this is actually the time of supply, which tells you that when GST liability will get triggered or when a person will be liable to pay GST. For example, if you go to a mobile shop and you ask the shopkeeper to show you latest mobile sets. Now, when you went to the shop and you asked the shopkeeper to show you the mobile phones, regarding the consideration for that mobile phone, I'm asking, will you become liable to pay the consideration the moment you ask him to give you or show you the mobile phones? No. Rajveer is saying you're right. At that point of time, no sale transaction has fructified, or you can say your liability to pay the consideration. I'm not talking about GST. I'm just giving you a simple example to show you that different events can happen in a particular transaction and our liability can happen at one of these events. So first of all, when I asked him to show the mobile phones, my liability does not arise. Then he went into his shop and he bring 10 type of latest mobile phones and he showed them to me. So does my liability to pay consideration arises at that time? Again, whatever I'm asking, I want answers from all of you. Quickly, you have to give the answers. I might take time to read them, but I should get the answers. No. So your liability will still not arise. Then I asked for the features of differentiating features of each of the mobile phones, and still my liability to pay does not arise. Now, after considering the cost, the features, the configuration of each of the mobile phones, I finally selected one of the mobile phones and asked the person to issue to pack the same for me, and he will show what he will do is he will once open the handset and he will give me a he will just get a go ahead from me that yes, this is working fine. He will show it the working of that particular handset and he will ask me that yes, now everything is fine, so we are delivering this phone to you. He will give me the invoice, and at that point of time, yes, Priyanshi is saying still it's not arising. Yes, it is still not arising. Now, when he has given me the delivery of the mobile phone and when he has issued me the invoice, now tell me whether the consideration, obligation to pay the consideration, whether it arises or not. Yes, from all of you. Nobody is saying no. Okay. So my obligation to pay the consideration. Happy to see that all of you are responding and all of you are giving correct answers. So my obligation to pay the consideration is final. Now, there could be a case that I know that shopkeeper, I might say him that, yes, I will pay you the amount tomorrow. I'm taking this, though generally it does not happen, but suppose he knows me or he is a known of, he's my known person. So he allows me to take the mobile phone. So I have postponed the payment date till the next day. But my obligation has been fixed on the moment I take the delivery and I get the invoice. Similarly, under GST law, we have to see the event which fixes the responsibility, which fixes the liability of the supplier or recipient, whichever is the case, which fixes the liability to pay GST. Payment date can be on a separate day because whatever transactions are happening in a particular month, their payment date can be clubbed and we can pay it the next month. So that is a relaxation which the government has provided, that as soon as your time of supply materializes, you need not pay the amount of GST on that particular day. What you can do, you can take the time of supplies of all the goods or services within a month, and then the amount of tax can be paid on the month or on the due date which has been fixed for that particular supply. Okay. Yeah. So all of you are saying that in my example, obligation to pay consideration had arisen. Now, similarly, we will see that how the tax liability or GST liability on a supply or on a transaction will arise. We'll see different events which are involved in a particular supply, and on which particular event we can say that yes, our liability to pay GST has been fixed now. Whether we pay it today or tomorrow or next month, that is a different thing, because we will be paying it on the due date. For that, government has given us a separate ड्यू डेट. गवर्नमेंट ने हमें एक डिफरेंट ड्यू डेट दी है उसको पे करने के लिए, लेकिन लाइबिलिटी हमारी उस डेट पे फिक्स हो जाती है. वो इवेंट हम अभी जब टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई के प्रोविजंस डिस्कस करेंगे तब देखेंगे. इनफैक्ट आई वांट some response in the chat box. How many of you are not comfortable in Hindi? Because we are generally getting responses and feedback from the students. They want to have some interaction in the class in Hindi. In fact, when we take the GST quiz also, that time also many students ask us to explain in Hindi. So some of you who are not comfortable in Hindi, please let me know that, because I can know that yes, this much percentage of students are not comfortable in Hindi and I would be repeating that thing in English also. Okay. So few students are comfortable in both the languages, and in fact, most of you have said except Soumya. Soumya is saying comfortable in English. I understand, Soumya. You might not be knowing Hindi. So I would be explaining everything in English also. Don't worry, you will not miss anything. Only thing is, I want to have connect with the students. So that is why I will use bit of Hindi also in between, so that you people are able to understand the provisions in a better manner. Some of you are comfortable in English, like Ananya is saying that English is her priority. And then Bhavya is also saying. So I will repeat everything in English, don't worry. But most of you are comfortable in both the languages. Good to know that. Okay. So now next step. So we have understood that yes, this is the point of time our liability is fixed. Now, final step in computing the GST liability is the determination of value of supply on which GST has to be computed. Now, this is in fact the next chapter which we will be discussing in class next to after today's class. One more class will be there for time of supply. After that, we have the class for time of value of supply. So this is how you can see we are also proceeding in similar manner. And if I see the GST cycle, so we have covered supply, we have covered charge, place of supply, exemption. So till now, till this point, we have covered everything. We are so near to determining the GST liability now. In this class, we'll be discussing time of supply provisions, and today we'll be confining to time of supply of goods. And in the next class, value of supply will be discussed next session, because 2 classes are scheduled for time of supply. After that, value of supply will be discussed, and then you can compute. And on value, you have to apply the applicable rate of GST also. For this, classification provisions are required. They have already been discussed in the charge of GST chapter. Okay. Nisha is saying, today is my first class. I can understand today's lecture. Yes, Nisha, even if you don't know the earlier provisions, at least focus on today's provision and you will be able to understand it. GST Titan quiz will be there, Tej. I will try my best, though I have very few questions today for GST Titan quiz, but I will try to have a GST Titan quiz at the end. So if time permits, definitely we'll have a GST Titan quiz today. Okay, so this is how we have understood that yes, the time of supply provisions are important. Okay, WhatsApp group link we will share. Exemption, okay, some entries have been left under exemption under GST. So please let me know that which entries, let me see which entries or which particular provisions have been left out. They will be discussed in the next class. Before we start the time of supply provisions in the next class, we'll be covering the remaining exemptions from GST. But basically the major services which are there under the exemption of GST, they have been discussed. Some of the entries are, because we have a very long list of exemption from GST. So it is expected that today after going home, you should revise time of supply provisions plus the remaining exemption from GST services. Just have a look at them, just have a glance and just have a reading of the services. You will find that there it's easy to understand just by going through those entries. We will have a quick recap type of a session in next class. And those of you who know that yes, some of these specific services you feel that they should also be discussed again, you can give me in the chat box. We will discuss that. Okay. So now we are starting with time of supply under GST. So our journey for knowing or understanding the provisions of time of supply under GST has started. So let us see any supply transaction. What are the elements of any supply transaction? Okay. Or why, first of all, the question arises why there is a need for having separate time of supply provisions. Is it not very apparent from the supply cycle itself that yes, this is the time of supply? Is it not so? It is not so. Why? Because we have so many elements in a supply transaction, and it is a possibility, or there is a possibility that these elements fall in different months. आपकी सप्लाई की एक ट्रांजेक्शन में बहुत सारे इवेंट्स होते हैं और उन सारे इवेंट्स का अलग अलग, कभी कभी वो अलग अलग टाइम पे फॉल करते हैं. तो हमारे लिए बहुत जरूरी है जानना कि हम किस पर्टिकुलर इवेंट पे ये कह सकते हैं कि हाँ अब हमारा लाइबिलिटी टू पे जीएसटी अराइज हो गया है या ये हमारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई है. इफ यू सी द एलिमेंट्स ऑफ सप्लाई, फर्स्ट इज सप्लाई एग्रीमेंट. आप एक सप्लाई का एग्रीमेंट करते हो, यू मेक एन एग्रीमेंट फॉर सप्लाई that this will be our terms and conditions. इस दिन हम इस तरह के प्रोडक्ट्स होंगे, उसमें पेमेंट किस तरह से की जाएगी, मेनली सप्लायर को क्या क्या चीजों का ध्यान रखें. देयर कैन बी n number of terms and conditions which we put in supply agreement. So we enter into a supply agreement when we are seeking or receiving supply from a supplier. Then we might give him a purchase order. ये हमें इतने यूनिट्स इस प्रोडक्ट के इस साइज में इस डिस्क्रिप्शन वाले चाहिए. He will finally dispatch your goods and you will be receiving the delivery of those goods. So these two events can also be on different dates. It depends on what is the distance. अगर आपका distance बहुत ज्यादा है तो ये दोनों इवेंट्स अलग अलग हो सकते हैं. आज आपने गुड्स डिस्पैच किए, 4 दिन बाद आपको रिसीव हुए, 2 दिन बाद आपको रिसीव हुए, सप्लायर को रिसीव हुए, सॉरी रिसिपिएंट को रिसीव हुए. देन वी हैव द इनवॉइस. फिर आप इनवॉइस इशू करोगे, सप्लायर विल इशू द इनवॉइस and recipient or buyer will make the payment. And then we have entry in the books of accounts, और हम अपनी books of accounts में entry भी करेंगे. तो अगर आप देखो तो एक supply transaction में कितने सारे events हैं, कितने सारे elements involved हैं, जिसको मिला के हमारी supply transaction बनती है. ठीक है. अनुभव, what do you want to say? आप अपनी query या जो भी है बताओ, elaborate करो. So अब आप देखो supply, these are the elements of supply. Now, I am taking an example. Suppose supply agreement is entered on 31st October and purchase order is sent on 20th of November. यानी अक्टूबर मंथ में supply agreement हुआ और purchase order मिला है नवंबर में. Goods are dispatched in the month of December. On 30th December, the goods were dispatched, and after 3 days, the goods were received. So, in fact, after 2 days, the goods are received. On 1st of January 2025, the goods are received. Delivery of goods has been received. But the month has changed. It is in a separate month. Invoice is raised on 1st of February. Payment is on 1st of March. And on 3rd of March, the entry in books of accounts has been made. So if you see this particular example, in this example, there are so many elements of supply which are there. And it now there is a confusion, or now the need for time of supply provision arises, that what will be our time of supply, or what will be the event that will trigger the time of supply. So can I get some answers in the chat box based on this elements of supply? Because key question is which event triggers GST payment obligation? कौन सा ऐसा event है जिसकी वजह से आप जिसके occurrence के बाद आप ये बोल सकते हो कि अब GST पे करना पड़ेगा, अब हम GST liability से नहीं बच सकते. So these are the elements. I am there on my screen. I want answers from all of you. Rajveer saying invoice, Payal is saying delivery, Mohammed Farhan invoice, invoice या फिर payment. Anubhav is saying, Nisha Kumari is saying 1st Feb. Okay, 1st Feb, that means invoice. Okay, so most of you are saying invoice. So that means you have some idea of time of supply provisions. But we will be starting afresh. हमें अभी कुछ नहीं पता. We don't know anything. Okay. We are starting. I'm also starting with you. So I saw that so many elements of supply are there, and now we'll go to the relevant provisions. And then we'll see how we determine the time of supply. Payment or invoice, whichever is earlier. Sunil is saying, Kinnary is saying 20th November. That means purchase order. Okay. Obligation is from delivery. Priyanshi is saying, Varsha is saying after payment. So I want answers from all of you. So Meera is saying on generation of invoice. Quick answers from all of you. Okay. So with this, I think all of you have answered what should be the time of supply as per your understanding. But right now, I'm not telling you the answer. We are postponing this answer for the timing. For the timing, what is important is there are so many elements of supply which are involved, and we have to see which element is significant or detriment for time of supply. Okay, so this question we are for the timing postponing. We'll see the provisions and then we will come to a conclusion that what would be the time of supply. That means when GST becomes payable. Now, this particular point which I have already stressed upon, that time of supply is not equal to due date of making the payment. Payment of due date, or sorry, due date for payment of tax will be definitely a separate date. and time of supply will be a separate date. Now, for example, time of supply of a particular transaction is 25th May, and the supplier is filing his returns on a monthly basis, then he will have to pay tax on 20th June. These provisions you will see in detail in payment of tax as well as the returns chapter. But for the timing, you should have this idea that whatever transactions are happening or occurring in the month of May, their time, whatever transactions for which time of supply is there in the month of May, payment of tax or GST on such supplies will be made by 20th June. That is the due date for payment of GST. So time of supply occurred on 25th May, but the payment is on a later day. Okay, that is what we had discussed. We should have just an idea of this. Exact provisions we will be discussing later on. अनुभव इज आस्किंग आंसर क्या है मैम? आंसर अभी आपको थोड़ी देर में पता चलेगा, सारे प्रोविजन जब हम समझ लेंगे, क्योंकि अभी अगर मैंने सिर्फ आंसर बता दिया तो आप सारे प्रोविजन समझने पे इतना ध्यान नहीं दोगे. सो दैट इज व्हाई आई एम गोइंग स्टेप बाय स्टेप टू ascertain time of supply. Okay. First of all, in today's session, we will discuss time of supply of goods. Services we will discuss in next session. Section 12 is the section which helps us in determining the time of supply of goods. Let us quickly go through the definition of goods once. All of you know this definition. You have done it in earlier chapters also, that goods means any kind of movable property. Whatever you understand by goods is actually goods. It should be movable. And it excludes money and securities. This we had done in the chapter of supply itself, that money and securities is neither goods nor services, and therefore GST is not leviable on money and securities. And goods include any actionable claim, crops, grass or things, but they should be severed before making the supply. So if you are purchasing any grass, then it should not be affixed to the ground. It should be severed before you make the supply of grass or growing crops is made. Actionable claims is also goods. So goods, the definition of goods is simple, that it should be a movable property. Now let us see which situations will be covered in section 12. Supply under forward charge, supply under reverse charge, forward charge, all of you know. Quickly give me answer, what is the reverse charge? Who is liable to pay? Severed. Okay, Dhanush is saying severed का क्या मतलब? Severed मतलब उनको काट देना. आपने crops को जो है अगर उनको काट दिया है, you have cut the crops and then you are selling them, and that is called severed. So crops should not be lying in your ground. RCM mein who is liable to pay tax? In fact, RCM provisions, we had done a GST quiz also, and most of you had done very well in that quiz. Okay. निशा सिंह एक बार बता दो फॉरवर्ड चार्ज एंड रिवर्स चार्ज. फॉरवर्ड, निशा देखो, जब भी आप टैक्स की लाइबिलिटी, जीएसटी लाइबिलिटी अराइज होती है, तो क्वेश्चन अराइजेस दैट हु इज गोइंग टू पे द टैक्स, हु इज गोइंग टू डिपॉजिट दैट टैक्स विद द गवर्नमेंट. तो गवर्नमेंट के पास कौन टैक्स डिपॉजिट करेगा, ये जो क्वेश्चन है, ये डिसाइड होता है कि वो पर्टिकुलर सप्लाई फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में टैक्स होगी या रिवर्स चार्ज में टैक्स होगी. जो बाय डिफॉल्ट या डिफॉल्ट प्रोविजन है वो कहता है कि रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी टू डिपॉजिट टैक्स को डिपॉजिट करने की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी सप्लायर की है. सप्लायर इज रिक्वायर्ड टू डिपॉजिट द टैक्स. दैट इज कॉल्ड फॉरवर्ड चार्ज, और वो डिफॉल्ट प्रोविजन है. हर सप्लाई के लिए आप बाय डिफॉल्ट मानोगे कि सप्लायर हैज टू डिपॉजिट द टैक्स विद द गवर्नमेंट. लेकिन इन सर्टेन केसेस रिसिपिएंट हैज टू पे द टैक्स, और वो कुछ नोटिफाइड सर्विसेज हैं जो सेक्शन 9(3) और 9(4) में बताई गई हैं. सर्विसेज, गुड्स जो भी हैं, स्पेसिफाइड सर्विसेज और गुड्स हैं, नोटिफाई हैं वो गुड्स और सर्विसेज जिनके केस में आपको रिवर्स चार्ज में टैक्स पे करना है, यानी रिसिपिएंट हैज टू पे द टैक्स. अब इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट ये है कि आई एम यूजिंग द वर्ड द लाइबिलिटी टू डिपॉजिट द टैक्स. दो वर्ड्स यूज्ड इन द लॉ इज लाइबिलिटी टू पे द टैक्स, बट डिपॉजिट वर्ड मैं इसलिए यूज कर रही हूँ क्योंकि अल्टीमेट बर्डन ऑफ टैक्स इज ऑन द रिसिपिएंट. सप्लायर जब टैक्स पे कर रहा था तो वो रिसिपिएंट से लेके आगे गवर्नमेंट को डिपॉजिट कर देता था. जब रिसिपिएंट टैक्स पे कर रहा है तो भी उसी की लाइबिलिटी थी, वो खुद जमा कर रहा है. तो मेनली तो डिपॉजिट करने का जो प्रोसीजर है वही चेंज हो रहा है रिवर्स चार्ज और फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में. अल्टीमेटली जो किसकी पॉकेट से जा रहा है वो बायर या रिसिपिएंट है, वो जाएगा रिसिपिएंट की पॉकेट से ही, लेकिन डिपॉजिट करने वाला पर्सन चेंज हो जाता है. फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में सप्लायर होगा जो कि एक डिफॉल्ट प्रोविजन है. रिवर्स चार्ज में इट वुड बी द रिसिपिएंट. Rajveer is saying registered person when supply is given by unregistered person. Yes, Rajveer, but in case of 9(3) services, if 9(3) services are there and your supplier is unregistered, suppose your recipient is also unregistered, then in that case, if it is a 9(3) service, RCM service, then recipient has to obtain registration and it has to pay tax on that particular transaction. Priyanshi, I will answer your question in the meantime. At the end of the class, I will be answering your question. Don't worry. In RCM, buyer pays. I think most of you have written that recipient is going to pay the tax. Varsha has written something different. Varsha, maybe you have written it by mistake, or by now you have understood the concept, so you can give us the right answer. Same is with Harsh. Harsh and Varsha, I am expecting the right answers from you now. Okay, by mistake you have written it, then it's fine. So now we'll be understanding the time of supply in each of these cases, vouchers, then some residual cases are there, and on interest on delayed payment of tax also we are going to determine the time of supply. So first is the time of supply of goods under section 12, that is forward charge. अब सबसे पहले हम forward charge में time of supply कैसे determine करना है we'll see. Okay, forward charge all of you have seen, and now all of you know now that what is forward charge, what is reverse charge. In case of forward charge, how time of supply will be determined. So first is now I am going to take most all the events and then we will see whether they are relevant for determining time of supply or not. पहले तो उनको अब जितने सारे elements हमने देखे थे उसमें से कुछ elements तो use नहीं होंगे, तो वो elements हम पहले बाहर करते हैं. We'll first of all rule out those elements which are not relevant for determining the time of supply. Priyanshi is saying FCM by supplier, RCM by buyer. You're right, Priyanshi. That is the basic golden rule. Now, first is agreement for supply. Now, is it relevant for determining time of supply of goods under forward charge? Yeah, I want answers from you also. In the meantime, I will tell you the answer also. So, is agreement for supply of goods, supply agreement, is it relevant for determining time of supply of goods? No, it is not relevant. Okay, and I'm getting answers from you also. That is good. You are participating in the class. Next is the purchase order. Now we had seen agreement ho gaya. We have made the agreement that these are the goods we have to supply. Now next step is we have to give a purchase order that yes, this much quantity, this description goods have to be received, or these are the goods we require. So is purchase order relevant for determining time of supply? Some of you had written in the answer also that purchase order is relevant earlier. Now, what is your view? We'll come to the provision also. But now all of you are answering no. And you are right, purchase order is also not relevant. Now, this is the third step. That is, the goods are being removed from the factory and goods are received by the recipient. So, supplier is removing the goods from the factory. And second is the delivery of the goods. So, dispatch and delivery. Is it relevant? Goods are being removed from the factory and they are being received by the recipient. So still everybody is saying it is not relevant. But I think if we rule out all the options, then how will we determine time of supply? So this particular element is relevant. आपने गुड्स कब रिमूव करे हैं अपनी फैक्ट्री से, या आपने बायर को कब गुड्स की डिलीवरी दी है. इट विल डिपेंड ऑन डिफरेंट केसेस, बट व्हेन द गुड्स हैव बीन डिलीवरी लीड्स टू ऑब्लिगेशन. प्रियांशी इज सेइंग यस. अनुभव, किन्नरी, नाउ दे आर सेइंग यस, एंड इट्स राइट दैट दिस इवेंट इज इंपॉर्टेंट. जब आप गुड्स अपनी फैक्ट्री से रिमूव कर रहे हो, अगर गुड्स में मूवमेंट इन्वॉल्व है, अगर गुड्स में मूवमेंट हो ही नहीं रहा, जैसे हमने प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई में देखा था, वी हैव सीन इन प्लेस ऑफ सप्लाई that there can be two cases. One case where movement of goods is involved, and second there is no movement of goods. तो जहां पे मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स है इन्वॉल्व, वहां पर किस दिन आपने गुड्स अपनी फैक्ट्री से रिमूव किए, दैट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर डिटरमिनिंग टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. बट इट इज नॉट दी ओनली इवेंट, और भी इवेंट्स हैं. जस्ट टू गिव यू अ हिंट, दूसरा है डिलीवरी. जिस दिन आपको डिलीवरी मिली है, अब ये हमें देखना है इसमें से कौन सा इवेंट रेलिवेंट है और किस केस में रेलिवेंट है. सस्पेंस हो गया है वर्षा. तो अभी देखते हैं आगे क्या हो रहा है. उसके बाद है इनवॉइस. अब इनवॉइस में आई वांट एन आंसर कि इनवॉइस पे कितने लोगों को लगता है कि हो जाएगा. इनवॉइस इज रेलिवेंट और नॉट. इनवॉइस में तो एवरीबडी सेइंग यस, तो इसका मतलब इनवॉइस तो आई हैव टू एक्सेप्ट, अगर नहीं भी है तो आई हैव टू एक्सेप्ट कि इनवॉइस में तो इट इज रेलिवेंट फॉर डिटरमिनिंग टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई। नेक्स्ट इवेंट है जब आपने पेमेंट की है, पेमेंट यू हैव, पेमेंट इज क्रेडिटेड इनटू द बैंक अकाउंट ऑफ द सप्लायर, मतलब रिसिपिएंट ने सप्लायर को पेमेंट कर दी है। इज इट रेलिवेंट? नाउ आई एम गेटिंग करेक्ट आंसर्स फ्रॉम ऑल ऑफ यू, दिस इज ऑल्सो रेलिवेंट। जब सप्लायर को पेमेंट मिल गई है, अ, इसके बैंक अकाउंट में पेमेंट आ गई है या कैश है तो उसको कैश मिल गया, विच एवर वे इज देयर, पेमेंट उसको रिसीव हो गई है, दैट इज ऑल्सो रेलिवेंट। एंड द नेक्स्ट इवेंट इज एंट्री इन द बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स ऑफ द रेसिपिएंट। Miss P is saying no. P, it is relevant, but as per the provision, it is relevant. We have to see first of all section 12, and then we will see what is the final situation today. So don't go into the final conclusion right now. What is relevant? Now here, entry in the books of accounts. That is also a relevant element. As per section 12, we will first of all see section 12. Then we will go further that what is the final situation today for determining time of supply of goods under forward charge. Now let's move further. Okay, now everybody is saying entry in books of accounts is also relevant. The provision says, section 12, it says that the time of supply, it involves two events: date of issue of invoice by the supplier. Supplier ही invoice issue करेगा, obvious सी बात है, तो date of issue of invoice by the supplier because this is a forward charge, or last date on which invoice ought to have been issued in terms of section 31. Now this we will be seeing later on कि section 31 क्या last date बताता है जिसमें आपको invoice issue कर देनी चाहिए. Section 31 provides you the last date or the timeline within which the invoice should have been issued. Tej is asking, is it possible that payment is made then invoice? Is it possible? This is possible, Tej. आपने payment पहले कर दिया, आपने advance payment कर दिया, and then invoice is being issued. That is quite possible. And this we will see in case of goods what will happen. तो invoice के दो points हैं, या तो आपने जिस दिन invoice issue की है, और the last date on which invoice should have been issued as per the GST provisions. GST के provisions के हिसाब से जो last date बनती थी, या तो वो date या जो actual date of issue of invoice है, उनमें से जो भी पहले आएगी, that will be taken. Okay, that means if you have issued the invoice before the last date, then your date of invoice will be the actual date of invoice. अगर आपने last date के बाद invoice issue किया है, तो last date on which invoice should have been issued would be your date of invoice for determining time of supply. Please tell me whether this point is clear to you or not. बहुत important point है ये. 31st day पे मत जाओ कीर्ति, अभी बिल्कुल नहीं है 31st day वाला point. This is please be on forward charge. इस सेशन के बाद आपको सारे पॉइंट्स याद हो जाएंगे. ओके, ऑल ऑफ यू हैव अंडरस्टूड कि इनवॉइस की जब मैं बात करती हूँ टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई में ऑफ गुड्स, either actual date of invoice or last date on which the invoice should have been issued as per GST provisions, whichever is earlier is your invoice date, one of the elements for determining time of supply. Section 12 जो है आपका, वो एक और एलिमेंट आपको बताता है. सेक्शन 12, अभी सेक्शन 12 चेंज नहीं हुआ है, सेक्शन 12 यही है जो मैं आपको दिखा रही हूँ. सेक्शन 12 सेकंड एलिमेंट बताता है डेट ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट बाय द सप्लायर. अब रिसिपेंट सप्लायर को पेमेंट देगा, जिस दिन सप्लायर के पास पेमेंट आ जाएगी वो डेट, एंड बोथ दीज इवेंट्स, इनफैक्ट दिस अप्लाइज टू बोथ दिस एज वेल एज दिस. ये वाला जो क्लॉज है, टू द एक्सटेंट पेमेंट, सॉरी दिस इज फॉर पेमेंट, सॉरी, एंड दिस इज फॉर द इनवॉइस, वी हैव सेपरेट पॉइंट, माय मिस्टेक. और इनवॉइस और पेमेंट, एक पॉइंट जो इसमें लिखा है कि जितनी आपकी इनवॉइस है, टू द एक्सटेंट योर इनवॉइस इज has been issued, the amount of invoice, we will determine time of supply only to that extent. Suppose your contract amount is 2 lakh rupees and the invoice has been issued for 50,000. Payment has been received for 50,000. So we will be determining time of supply only for 50,000. For 1,50,000 separately, time of supply will be determined. Separate definition is there for this. We will see that. But these are the two elements. And out of these, whichever is earlier. So date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier. बहुत simple शब्दों में अगर हम बोलें, date of invoice or date of payment, whichever is earlier, that would be your time of supply. Now comes the most important point. ये वाला जो आपका second element है, ये बाहर हो जाता है. This is not relevant. इसको जीएसटी लॉ इंट्रोड्यूस करने के बाद हटा दिया गया. दिस वॉज रिमूव्ड और यू कैन से दिस वॉज मेड इररिलेवेंट, रिडंडेंट आफ्टर इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ जीएसटी लॉ. अब ये किया किसने? ये किया आपकी नोटिफिकेशन नंबर 66/2000. ये आपकी नोटिफिकेशन 66/2017. A notification was issued by the department and they said that, let us see what this notification provides. It said a registered person should pay GST on outward supply of goods at the time of supply as specified in section 12(2)(a. हम बहुत क्लॉज वाइज नहीं जा रहे बिकॉज वी वांट टू फोकस मोर ऑन कॉन्सेप्ट. बट 12(2)(a क्या कहता है? डेट ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस और लास्ट डेट ऑन विच इनवॉइस शुड हैव बीन इशूड. यानी अगर हम अपने इसमें देखें अपने पीपीटी में, तो दिस इज द इवेंट विच हैज बीन लेफ्ट, दिस हैज बीन रिमूव्ड. Why this was done? Before that, I will take a query. Should we compare these 2 points or are below that point? Okay, Nisha is saying, please once again. Let me repeat this whole once again. For time of supply of goods के लिए, there are 2 events which are relevant. One is invoice and second is payment. As per section 12, these 2 events have been listed. Date of invoice में 2 events हैं. या तो actual date of invoice होनी चाहिए और it should be the last day on which invoice should have been issued as per GST law. GST law एक टाइमलाइन बताता है कि आपको एक्चुअली में इनवॉइस इस टाइम तक इशू कर देनी चाहिए थी. अगर आपने उस डेट तक इनवॉइस इशू कर दी तो ठीक है, एक्चुअल डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस होगी. लेकिन अगर आपने उस डेट तक इशू नहीं की है इनवॉइस, तो आपकी लास्ट डेट को ही हम डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस मान लेंगे फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. फर्स्ट इवेंट इज दिस. सेकेंड इवेंट इज डेट ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट, जो पेमेंट सप्लायर को किस दिन मिली है. लेकिन नोटिफिकेशन 66/2017 ने इस वाले इवेंट को हटा दिया. अब इसका रीजन क्या है? तो रीजन ये है कि बिफोर इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ जीएसटी लॉ, अंडर एक्साइज लॉ, द manufacturers or suppliers were liable to pay the excise duty at the time of removal of goods from their factory. So they were not required to pay tax or excise duty on the advance amount received. Okay, so any advance money which we have received, tax was not payable on this. Now, when GST came and they levied GST on the advance received for the goods, because they created a parity between goods and services. Services में पहले भी advance पे tax लगता था, goods में नहीं लगता था. When after the advent of GST, the tax was levied on the advance received for the goods, then it disturbed the working capital requirement or the supply chain of the suppliers of goods, because they were not paying any tax on their advance amount received for the goods. तो मैन्युफैक्चरर्स या सप्लाई या जो ट्रेडर्स थे, उनको जैसे वैट में भी यही था कि अगर उनको ये एडवांस के ऊपर टैक्स पे नहीं करना होता था, तो अगर इस केस में जब जीएसटी में उनके एडवांस के ऊपर टैक्स लग गया, तो उनके वर्किंग कैपिटल रिक्वायरमेंट इट गॉट बैडली हिट एंड दैट इज व्हाई द गवर्नमेंट मेड दिस चेंज. दे सेड कि पेमेंट आपको टैक्स की कब करनी है? जब आपकी इनवॉइस इशू होगी, आपको एडवांस पे टैक्स पे नहीं करना. So in effect, GST is not payable at the time of receipt of advance. Please tell me whether this point is clear to you or not. इसका conclusion क्या है वो एक बार हम देखते हैं. Then I will ask you whether this point is clear. Time of supply of goods for the purpose of payment of tax. जब tax pay करना है तो उसके लिए हमें finally tax की liability कब arise होगी? या तो आपने जिस दिन invoice issue की है और last date when invoice ought to have been issued under section 31. This we will see in subsequent slides की section 31 वो कौन सी डेट बताता है जिसमें आपको इशू करना था. Please give me reply in the chat box whether you are understanding. Confusion है then you can let me know. Otherwise we'll move ahead. If you want me to explain this again, please let me know. तो अब हमें इस एक्चुअली क्या है, सेक्शन 12 में हमें थोड़ा लर्न और अनलर्न करना है या लर्न टू फॉरगेट करना है. सेक्शन 12 जब हमने पढ़ा तो हमने शुरू में पढ़ा कि 2 इवेंट्स हैं, डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस और डेट ऑफ पेमेंट. लेकिन इमीडिएटली हमें सेक्शन 66 नोटिफिकेशन 66/2017 आ गई और उसने बोला नहीं नहीं ऐसा कुछ नहीं चलेगा, रिसीट पे कोई टैक्स नहीं पे करना। हम अपने सप्लायर्स, जो गुड्स के सप्लायर्स हैं, सबको रिलीव करते हैं। वी आर प्रोवाइडिंग देम द रिलैक्सेशन कि आपको एडवांस पे टैक्स नहीं पे करना। सो वी प्रोवाइडेड देम द रिलैक्सेशन दैट दे नीड नॉट पे टैक्स ऑन एडवांसेस। क्योंकि रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट को अगर हम इसमें यहाँ डाल देते हैं तो क्या होगा कि जब भी आपकी रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट पहले होगी, यानी कि जब आपका एडवांस आप अमाउंट रिसीव करोगे, then that will become liable to tax, which government did not want after getting representations from the suppliers of goods. So therefore they removed this particular element, और अब एक ही एलिमेंट रह गया जो कि क्या था, डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस और लास्ट डेट ऑन विच इनवॉइस इज issued. Astha, I didn't get your query. What you want to say, or you want to stress on some point? Okay. So let me see if any of you want to get it repeated. This relief is only, yes, Soumya, this relief is only for goods. सर्विसेज में क्यों नहीं क्यों रिलीफ प्रोवाइड किया? क्योंकि सर्विसेज में प्री जीएसटी रीजन, यानी कि सर्विस टैक्स के टाइम पर भी एडवांस पे टैक्स पे होता था. सो service providers were used to this provision or this particular levy. So they were not having any problem. Goods के case में working capital requirement was getting badly hit and that is why this provision came. इसमें अभी हमने ये bold वाले words छोड़ दिए हैं. We have left these words which are given in bold. इन subsequent slides we'll see this. अभी simply समझने के लिए क्या है कि आपको goods के case में forward charge में you have to pay tax on date of invoice or last date on which invoice should have been issued. Let us see the next point. So this is the final position and this should be there in your mind. This should be imprinted in your mind. उससे पहले आप जो भी देखा था receipt वगैरह अभी फिलहाल हम नहीं दोबारा सोचेंगे. We will see only this. In case of advance only, notification rule applied. Okay. Now, this was the point I was referring to. Okay. So now this was the point I was referring. In fact, I would take 5 minutes break in between. And in the meantime, you just revise whatever we have done till now, then we'll resume after 5 minutes. Okay. So please put the break. Divya. Yes. Welcome back, students. So break has been a bit long, but I hope all of you would have revised your till the time we have done whatever concepts we had discussed till now. Now, Tej Prakash is saying, ma'am, please upload the notes of exemption in place of supply. Okay, we'll get them uploaded. Don't worry, Tej. And Rajveer is saying, if purchase a good for 10,000 and we pay 4,000 as advance, so in invoice only 6,000 will be recorded and means seller will get 6,000. No, that is not the case, Rajveer. Actually, 10,000 is the total consideration, out of which 4,000 you have received as an advance. So invoice will be issued for advance amount also. Okay, don't think that invoice will be issued only for the balance amount. Invoice will be issued for the entire amount, 10,000 amount. And when the invoice is issued, now the invoice can also be issued in parts. In that case, there can be a possibility that the supplier has issued invoice, first of all, for advance of 4,000 and then for remaining amount of 6,000. So when he issues invoice, the time of supply will occur. जिस दिन वो invoice issue करेगा, उसी दिन उसका time of supply होगा. When we had taken the break, we were on this particular topic that in which cases GST is still payable on the advances received in case of supply of goods. Goods की supply में भी ऐसे cases हैं. दो cases जो हमने bold वाला content था and I told you specifically कि अभी हमने इसको नहीं discuss किया है, उसमें tax जो है वो advance पे pay होता है. In fact, आप इन दोनों points को पढ़ो and then I will ask you some questions. दिस केस द इम्पॉर्टेंट पॉइंट इज कि ये हमने एक गोल्डन रूल बना लिया कि जब भी गुड्स की सप्लाई होगी तो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई सिर्फ इनवॉइस होगी और कुछ नहीं देखना. और इनवॉइस के लिए हम देखेंगे कि या तो लास्ट डेट जिस पे इनवॉइस इशू करनी थी या उससे पहले जब भी इनवॉइस इशू करी है वो दो डेट्स में से जो भी पहले है दैट वुड बी दी टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. बट अब दो एक्सेप्शंस हैं. देयर आर टू एक्सेप्शंस टू दिस जनरल प्रिंसिपल दैट द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी the invoice date. That means time of supply will never be the payment date, or you can say tax is not payable on advance of goods. ये सब अभी अब तक हमने समझा. But दो exceptions क्या हैं? Composition supplier और specified actionable claims. Composition supplier के केस में what would be the time of supply? Earliest of date of payment or date of invoice or last date of invoice. मतलब it means ये this is we have written simply, but what is actually the time of supply, which is the time of supply as per section 12. क्योंकि section 12 अभी भी existence में है. section 12 को change नहीं किया गया. section 12 has not been amended. This is very conceptual point, but all of you should know that point. Why? Because composition supplier or specified actionable claims. अभी मैं बताऊंगी specified actionable claims क्या है. I will tell you what actionable specified actionable claims is. But before that, time of supply as per section 12 is same. Section 12 is not amended, but we have brought out notification number 66 by 2017 और उससे हमने ये establish कर दिया कि सिर्फ invoice की date important है. In case of composition supplier, what happens? A composition supplier pays tax on the turnover of goods or marginal services, whatever it is. Majorly goods are there. It pays the tax on turnover for a month or for not in fact for a quarter. It pays tax on quarterly basis. So whatever turnover a composition supplier has during a particular period, it pays tax on the turnover, specified percentage of turnover. Manufacturer and trader pays it on 1% and then restaurant service provider pays it on 5%. You would have done it in composition scheme. That particular percentage when we are paying the tax. So in turnover, we are taking the advances also. When we are computing the turnover for supply of goods or for a composition supplier, when we are computing the turnover, in that case, advances are also taken. So in a way, composition supplier is paying tax on the advances also. Similarly, specified actionable claims. In case of specified actionable claims, the time of supply will be either the date of payment or date of invoice, whichever is earlier. That means on advances, in case of supply of specified actionable claims, tax will be paid on either of the earlier of the two events. Now, what are the specified actionable claims? Actionable claim is actually a document or a claim, uh, which creates a liability on the person who has that actionable claim. He has a liability to get something done on behalf of, on account of that particular claim. And you can get that claim enforced in court of law. Now, can some of you get list or give me the some of the specified actionable claims before I tell you the actionable claims? I hope all of you are with me. I want the specified actionable claims. We have done it in the chapter of supply. In fact, I am getting responses in the another portal also. Palak, Uma, Bhumika are there in the ECPL portal. So now I will take into account your replies also. Uma is saying, please explain in English. Uma, I will take care of this. Don't worry. I will explain everything in English. I'm not missing out any point which I'm explaining in Hindi. Everything I'm telling in English. Okay. So responses which I have got is the gambling, horse racing, lottery, then online money gaming. So Soumya, Anubhav, Kirti, then Astha has given, I think, all six. Five Astha has given. One more is left, Astha. So which is that? Then I think I have already told. Okay, Priyanshi has also given the correct answer. So what are these specified actionable claims? Pooja has given all six. So these are the actionable claims on which GST is payable. Otherwise, actionable claims are neither supply of goods nor supply of services. You have read this in chapter supply under GST. Only these six actionable claims are supply, and therefore for them you have to pay tax in case the advance is received in respect of these supplies. Lottery, betting, gambling. I'm still getting answers and I'm happy that all of you are participating. Online money gaming, betting, gambling, lottery. Then we have casinos. And last one is horse racing. Okay. So these are the two exceptions where tax has to be paid on the advances received pertaining to the supply of goods. Otherwise, golden rule is no tax on advances in case of goods. Time and again, I am repeating this so that it gets imprinted in your mind कि goods के case में we do not pay tax on the advances. We pay tax only on the invoice. For these, first option will also be there. Astha is saying yes. Astha, for these two, the time of supply will be this. That is date of payment or date of invoice or last date of issuance of invoice. That means both the clauses of section 12 will apply. Now, this entire clause will be applicable for composition scheme as well as for the composition scheme as well as for the supply of specified actionable claims. Anubhav is saying why is these two are exempted? Okay, you want to know that why they have been allowed to pay tax on, or not allowed. In fact, this relaxation is not for them because in case of the composition supply, maybe they wanted to have some more control of them and whatever advances they are receiving, they want them to pay the tax. Betting, gambling, and lottery advance. These are all the areas where these were always the controversial areas. Earlier, some of them were not even liable to tax in a proper manner as the government wanted. So maybe because I already told you it's a relaxation which has been provided to the supplier of goods. So maybe because of that reason, these persons have been kept out of this relaxation. Now, significant of the word to the extent the invoice or payment covers supply of goods. When we read section 12, these words, I already told you that these words have an importance. To the extent invoice covers supply of goods, to the extent payment covers supply of goods. Okay, that means as I discussed in the example which Rajveer also gave, that whatever payment, but here this event has already been nullified. So this will not be relevant. Only this point will be relevant. So when I say significance of the to the extent invoice or payment will be strike off and we will only cover the significance because this is a special explanation which has been provided in section 12, that when we are saying we have to find time of supply, we have to find time of supply to the extent to the extent of the amount which is covered in the invoice. So suppose your invoice, your total consideration is 1 lakh rupees. For the timing, the goods whichever goods have been supplied, the invoice has been issued only for 40,000 rupees. Then the time of supply will only be determined for 40,000. Remaining for 60,000, when invoice will be issued, then time of supply will be accordingly determined. Nisha is saying, please explain composition supplier. Nisha, in case of the composition supplier, in fact, at intermediate level, this point is not, we just want to give an idea of this particular point, that composition supplier and specified actionable claims are subject to tax on advances also. You should just have an idea about this. Composition supplier has to pay tax on the turnover in the state. This all of you know because you must have seen it in the charge of GST chapter. कॉम्पोजिशन सप्लायर को टैक्स अपनी हर ट्रांजेक्शन पे अलग अलग पे नहीं करना होता. कॉम्पोजिशन सप्लायर के केस में एट द एंड ऑफ द क्वार्टर जितना भी टर्नओवर होता है उस टर्नओवर का स्पेसिफाइड परसेंटेज 1% या 5% वट एवर इज द केस that is taken in here. It will be 1% only because हम मैन्युफैक्चरर्स की या सप्लायर ऑफ गुड्स की बात कर रहे हैं. So 1% of the percentage of the turnover in the goods has to be given as the tax. So therefore, that has to be, now in that turnover will include advance, because this has been specifically excluded from notification number 66 by 2017. Okay, so therefore the composition supplier is outside notification number 66 by 2017, or outside the relaxation of not paying tax on advances. Composition supplier has to pay tax on advances because his turnover will include advances received also. So whatever he has received turnover based on invoices or turnover based on advances, he has to pay tax on that. Okay, now read this example and let me know that what it exactly means, for what amount, or what quantity, for how much quantity the time of supply has to be. Yes, students are actually finding out the answer. So I'm happy to see that all of you have given the correct answer here. To the extent the invoice covers the supply, we have to determine time of supply only to that extent, and here in this case it will be 80 kg only. So you have understood the point. That means, okay, those who are with us in ECPL in the other portal, they should also give us the answer so that they also understand the concept. Now, time of supply, a time limit for issuance of invoice for supply of goods under section 31. Till now, I had been repeating this sentence time and again, that either the date of invoice or last date on which the invoice should have been issued is the time of supply. Now, if you see now we should also know what is that date exactly, or the time limit which is there for issuance of invoice for supply of goods, which has been specified under section 31. Now, There are separate provisions. Before going to these provisions, let me give you a brief idea. Section 31 provides the invoicing provisions. Whenever we are doing the time of supply concept, we always have to read it along with section 31 because of this particular event which we attracts the time of supply, that is last date on which invoice should have been issued as per section 31. So we should know that what section 31 actually says, or what timeline section 31 actually provides us to issue the invoice. For that, there are three types of supplies for which section 31 provides the invoice date. One is the invoice, first is the normal supply, second is the continuous supply of goods, and third is supply on sale or return basis. So first we will cover is the normal supply. Now this will prevail in each and every case unless it is specified that it is a continuous supply of goods or it is a case of goods sent on sales or return basis. I will tell you what is a good, what do you mean by goods sent on sales or return basis. Pawan is saying please explain in Hindi. Pawan हिंदी में भी बताती हूँ. अभी तक हम बार बार दो इवेंट्स की बात कर रहे हैं कि या तो इनवॉइस इंपॉर्टेंट है जिस दिन आपने एक्चुअल इनवॉइस इशू करी है, या आपके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है कि लास्ट डेट जिस दिन इनवॉइस इशू हो जानी चाहिए थी एज पर सेक्शन 31. तो अभी तक हमने ये नहीं देखा कि सेक्शन 31 कहता क्या है, और टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई के प्रोविजंस को पढ़ते वक्त आपको सेक्शन 31 साथ में पढ़ना ही पड़ेगा, क्योंकि सेक्शन 31 ही वो सेक्शन है जो आपको ये बताएगा कि आपको कब तक इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी चाहिए थी. अब उसमें तीन तरह की आपकी सप्लाईज है. एक तो नॉर्मल सप्लाई या कह लो रेजिडुअल सप्लाई, जो सब नॉर्मल हर केस में जो रूल लगेगा, जो प्रोविजन लगेगा, वो नॉर्मल सप्लाई का एक प्रोविजन है. एक है आपका कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स का, वो हम देखेंगे कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई क्या होता है. और तीसरा है आपका सेल्स ऑन सप्लाई ऑन सेल और रिटर्न बेसिस, यानी आपने गुड्स भेजे और आपको अभी ये पक्का नहीं पता कि वो गुड्स खरीदे जाएंगे या नहीं खरीदे जाएंगे, आपने सैंपल की तरह कुछ गुड्स भेज दिए हैं या आपने अभी गुड्स भेज दिए हैं, द अदर पर्सन हैज टू गिव द अप्रूवल. So sale on return basis, supply on sale or return basis means that goods have been sent to the recipient and recipient have to see them. He will check them. If he finds them okay, if he wants to purchase them, then he will inform the recipient supplier and the sale will fructify. तो उसमें सेल इमीडिएटली फ्रक्टिफाई नहीं होती. सेल डज नॉट गेट मेटीरियलाइज्ड इमीडिएटली व्हेन द गुड्स आर सेंट टू द रेसिपिएंट. ओके, सो इन केस ऑफ, अब ये जो प्रोविजन जो अभी हम पढ़ रहे हैं, this is the major provision for supply of for issuance of invoice. Normal timeline for issuance of invoice is this only, so please pay attention towards this. Continuous और sales और return basis तो एक exception वाली चीज है, बाकी ये वाला timeline ही सबसे main है. So this is section 31 which provides that the invoice should be issued. There are two cases. One where movement of goods is there and another case where movement of goods is not there. First, when supply involves movement of goods. Now, in case where the supply involves movement of goods, then in that case, the invoice should be issued बिफोर और एट द टाइम ऑफ रिमूवल ऑफ गुड्स. यानी आपने जब सप्लाई की है तो उसके लिए आपको गुड्स को कहीं ले जाना पड़ेगा. गुड्स वहां रखे रखे नहीं आप बेच सकते. गुड, यू आर नॉट सेलिंग द गुड्स एज सच और इन द एज इज वेयर इज बेसिस. दैट मीन्स इट इज नॉट अ केस वेयर गुड्स आर लाइंग समवेयर एंड दे हैव बीन सोल्ड एंड देयर इज नो नीड टू मूव द गुड्स. This case would be the second case. If for a supply transaction to take place, goods have to be moved. We had done it very clearly in place of supply chapter. If you remember, we had a quiz question on that, that even if recipient is taking goods from the supplier, then also it amounts to movement of goods. तो अगर आपके supplier की factory से recipient अपने खुद goods को उठाकर अपने घर लेके जा रहा है, अपने factory पे warehouse पे लेके जा रहा है, then also it falls in the case of supply involving movement of goods. So whenever for making a supply goods have to be moved, then the invoice will be issued either before or at the time of removal of goods. Okay. Then in any other case, the goods, so in that case, either when I say either before or after at the time of removal, that means when you are actually moving the goods, either these goods are removed by the supplier or these goods are removed by the recipient, but on that particular date. Yes, Tanush, you are right. So movement on the date of removal of the goods, you should be sure that your invoice has been issued if you want to comply with section 31. But there could be cases when somebody had not complied with section 31, though generally practically speaking for movement of the goods, when you are transporting the goods, you require e-way bill. For transportation, you require the invoice per se. But there can be some case where you say that or for the purpose of understanding, we'll take the cases also where the invoice has not been so issued. So, but if somebody is not complying with the provisions, that can also be a case. So first is where the supply involves movement of goods. This is the maximum period to generate. Yes, Anubhav, this is the maximum period to generate the invoice as per section 31. But commercial invoice, or you feel that you want to issue after that, nobody can stop you. But if you want to comply with GST provision, then this is the final time that before removing the goods or at the time of removing the goods, the invoice should be there. Dhanush is saying removal of goods from where is it, from supplier or recipient? Dhanush, that is what I explained, that goods are being removed from the supplier's premises. Now, who is removing those goods? That is not relevant, but those goods should be removed from the supplier's premises, either by the supplier himself or recipient is removing, but goods should be removed. That date will be the date on which the invoice should have been issued. In case the supply does not involve the movement of the goods, that means the goods have to be delivered or they have to be made available. Goods are being delivered on the site. For example, we have assembled a machinery on a particular site, and the supplier has assembled the machinery on a site, and he has asked the recipient to take the delivery of the goods from there itself. That means goods are there itself. So goods have not, the machinery as such has not moved from one place to another. The parts of machinery have been moved or they have been collected from various locations, and at one place that machinery was assembled, and then it became the product which was to be sold to the recipient. So then in that case, that is the location where the goods were delivered, and it did not involve movement of the goods. This is one example. Second example is I have purchased a building, and in that building furniture, computer, fixtures, tape, fan, everything was there. I purchased the building and I said everything which is there in this building, all fixtures and furnitures, all the goods which are provided, which are there in that particular building belongs to me. So I am purchasing the building along with the goods which are there in it. Those fixtures, furniture, computer, lights, fans, everything, they will be they will fall in this category. That means you are making goods available to the recipient on the location itself. So this is that location now belongs to the recipient, and recipient is getting the goods available on the location. Goods are not moving anywhere. So in such a case, what would be the timeline or what would be the time limit for issuing the invoice? It would be delivery of goods, making goods available to recipient. Okay. So in that case, this will be the last date on which the invoice should be issued. That means when you said to the recipient that, see, this is the machinery I have assembled, from today you can use it. So that will be your date of delivery of that particular machinery. Or you have said that this office furniture, fixture, everything belongs to you, from today you can use it. From that date, now that would be the date of making the goods available to the recipient. And these are the two dates on which, or in each of the cases which I have explained, on these dates you have to issue until this date you have to issue the invoice. So in case the invoice is issued till this date, then normal provisions, then in that case that would be the time of supply. Or otherwise, if invoice is issued after that, then what is the last date, that will be taken as the time of supply. So, okay, Dhanush did not get the second point. In second point, Dhanush, I told that goods are not moving from one place to another for supply. I will explain in Hindi this point. गुड्स की डिलीवरी के, आपको गुड्स को कहीं मूव नहीं करना. आपने एक मशीनरी को असेंबल किया साइट के ऊपर, जो क्लाइंट की साइट थी, आप वहां गए, आपने एक मशीनरी असेंबल की, बहुत बड़ी मशीनरी, बहुत सारे पार्ट्स अलग अलग जगह से लाना पड़ा, और आपने उसको वहां पे उस मशीनरी को असेंबल कर दिया. अब आपने क्लाइंट को बोला आप इसकी डिलीवरी ले लीजिए, ठीक है. तो उस केस में आपको जो गुड्स आपने डिलीवर वहां पे करवाए हैं, या जहां मतलब डिलीवरी ऑफ गुड्स आपने एक तरह से उस साइट पे ही कर दिया, आपने उस मशीनरी को कहाँ डिलीवर किया, उस साइट पे कर दिया. तो उस केस में सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट क्या है कि कहीं गुड्स मूव नहीं हुए हैं, आपकी मशीनरी कहीं मूव नहीं हुई है. मशीनरी के डिफरेंट डिफरेंट पार्ट्स को आप लाए, आपने जब उसे मशीनरी बनाया, उसके बाद वो मशीनरी कहीं मूव नहीं हुई और आपके क्लाइंट को अपनी साइट पे मिल गई. तो एक केस तो ये हो गया कि यहाँ सप्लाई हो गई, आपने बोला ये आपकी मशीनरी, आज से आप संभालो, सप्लाई हो गई मशीनरी, लेकिन आपकी मूव कहीं नहीं हुई मशीनरी, तो फर्स्ट केस में नहीं आ सकता. सेकेंड एग्जाम्पल मैंने आपको दिया कि आपने एक फैक्ट्री खरीदी या आपने एक ऑफिस खरीदा, वो ऑफिस को खरीदना सप्लाई नहीं है, बट उस ऑफिस के अंदर जो आपके फिक्सचर्स, फर्नीचर, मतलब फैन है, लाइट है, जो भी चीजें आपकी थी, कंप्यूटर्स थे, वो सब के सब आपने एज इट इज साथ में खरीद लिए। तो अब जो ये मूवेबल प्रॉपर्टीज उसके अंदर हैं, मूवेबल गुड्स जो आपकी प्रॉपर्टी के अंदर हैं, जो आपने खरीदी है और वो भी अब आपके हो गए हैं, वो वहीं रहे, उनको आपने कहीं लेके नहीं गए, आपने उसी बिल्डिंग के अंदर उनको खरीद लिया। सो हाँ, सो दिस विल बी द लास्ट, तो उस दिन आपको, वो है आपका टाइमलाइन जब तक आपको इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी है। सो इन केस वेयर गुड्स आर नॉट मूविंग फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर, देन इनवॉइस शुड बी इशूड व्हेन यू आर गिविंग द डिलीवरी। जब आपने जिस दिन अपनी मशीनरी को बोला कि आप ये मशीनरी ले लीजिए, इस क्लाइंट को बोला, उस दिन तक आप इनवॉइस इशू कर दो उस मशीनरी की। सिमिलरली आप ऑफिस फर्नीचर फिक्सचर्स बेच रहे हो, तो उसको भी आप यही मानोगे कि डिलीवरी आपने नहीं उसी दिन वहीं पे दे दिया, आपने मूव नहीं किया है। Tanush saying, ma'am, good. So constructing a building for client comes in this case. नहीं, Pranshi, constructing a building does not come. I am not constructing a building. मैंने अपने building बेची है. I have sold a building and I have actually asked the client to, I have asked the supplier to give me the furniture and fixtures also along with that building. So when I am using those furniture, fixtures, those movable property which is there in that building, I'm using it there only, so that is not moving from one place to another. This is just to explain कि कौन सा ऐसा केस हो सकता है. So it is not moving from one place to another. That is why it falls in second case. Your fixture furniture is not moving anywhere. तनुष सिंह, मैम गुड्स तो नहीं मूव हुए, लेकिन डेट कौन सा, डेट कौन सा इनवॉइस का? इनवॉइस का डेट वो है जिस दिन आपने बोला कि ये मशीनरी अब आपकी हो गई है, मैंने आपकी मशीनरी असेंबल कर दी है, उस दिन तक इनवॉइस आपको इशू कर देनी है। जिस दिन आपने ये फिक्सचर फर्नीचर्स, आपने अपने क्लाइंट को बोला कि ये फिक्सचर फर्नीचर्स अब आपके हैं, आपने खरीद लिए हैं, अब आप इनको यूज करो, दैट डेट विल बी द लास्ट डेट ऑन विच द इनवॉइस शुड बी इशूड। ठीक है। So different parts will be considered in case of movement of goods for the person. हाँ, अगर आप मशीनरी के लिए बहुत सारे पार्ट्स खरीद रहे हो और आपने उनसे खरीदे हैं, तो वो उस पर्सन के लिए, मेरे मतलब वो, जैसे मैंने सपोज मिस्टर ए इज असेंबलिंग दी मशीनरी, इट हैज परचेज दी पार्ट्स फ्रॉम बी, सी एंड डी। सो बी, सी एंड डी के लिए तो वो मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स में फॉल करेगा, लेकिन जब ए ने वो बेचकर किसी और पर्सन को बेचा, वो इवेंट मशीनरी जो है उसके केस में वो सेकेंड केस में फॉल करेगा। So I hope now you got it. Can example of second case include making furniture at home with equipments required? Yes, sure, it makes it. अगर आपने फर्नीचर अपने घर में बनवाया है, आपने सारा सामान, मतलब, लेकिन उस केस में फर्नीचर आप क्या एग्जैक्टली सर्विस ले रहे हो, सप्लाई, व्हाट इज द एग्जैक्ट नेचर ऑफ सप्लाई, बट दैट मीन्स यू आर नॉट, it should not be a, you are giving your own material. That means if I am getting a furniture made and I am bringing my own material, and carpenter is only giving me the service of making the furniture, then it will not fall in this category. But if carpenter is saying, I will make the furniture at your home, I will use my own material, after becoming a sofa, or after the table gets finalized, then I will hand it over to you, then that will fall in this case. Sale of building is not covered in GST, Johan, Prakash. It is outside the purview of GST. That is why I told you that sale of building, I am not leaving GST. I am saying the furniture fixture which is there in the building, that is a supply, and on that I am telling that it will fall in second example. Okay, Soumya wants an example with dates. On date which is delivered, that is the date. So अगर आपने मशीनरी बनानी शुरू की 1 अप्रैल को, assemble करनी, and on 30th April you have completed the assembling of machinery, then 30th April is the date of supply, or is the last date on which the invoice has to be issued. That is the date of delivery of machinery. So 1 April को आपने start कर दिया था, but आपने complete किया है 30th April को. So that will be your लास्ट डेट ऑन विच इनवॉइस शुड बी इशूड, और दैट इज द डेट ऑफ डिलीवरी. तो आपको 30th अप्रैल को इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी चाहिए उसे. कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ बिल्डिंग एंड सोल्ड, वो यस, कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ बिल्डिंग सोल्ड बिफोर कंप्लीशन सर्टिफिकेट, यू हैव रिसीव्ड सम कंसिडरेशन, दैट इज अ सर्विस पर से, बट दिस विल नॉट बी इंक्लूडेड इन दिस केस. वो इंक्लूड नहीं होगा आस्था, वो सर्विस है. ओके, so in this case, now when we have understood the last date for removal of goods, or you can say last date for issuing invoice in case of a normal, in normal course when we are selling the goods. So on the basis of this, I have framed this example. I want all of you to go through this example and come out with answer and write your answer in the chat box. I'm just coming back in 2 minutes, and in the meantime, you see this example. Okay. And please write your answers in the chat box. Okay. So I have started getting answers. Okay. Some of you have given elaborate reasoning also. Ishan is saying, assuming that supplier is neither composition supplier nor supplier of specified actionable claims. Very true. It's a supply of goods in normal course. So assumption, basic underlying assumption is that the supplier is not a composition supplier. Supplier is not a supplier of specified actionable claims. Okay. Yes. Okay. So let us see first case. I have got the answer. Okay. Screen. My screen is visible to all of you. Please let me know. PPT is removed. Okay. Please once again confirm in the chat box whether PPT is there or not. If you are not able to see the PPT, please let me know. Now, let me see the answers. First of all, let us go question by question, and then we will see that what would be the, not now, when you went off. Okay. Okay. When I put the break, then you were not able to see the PPT. Okay. So that's why, okay, that in that case, you will not be able to, you would not have been able to see the question also. So let's start the question. Those of you who had done it, good that you were able to do it without the question also. Okay, maybe I had switched off the video, and that is why you were not able to see the video PPT. First case is the goods were removed on 12th of September. Date of payment, there are two dates of payment. Advance 29th August. On 29th August, we received the advance payment of 50%, and 50% payment is received on 1st of October. Then the date of invoice. Now this is the actual date of invoice. Okay. Date of invoice, when I say this is the actual date of invoice or actual date on which invoice has been issued, that is 12th of September. So what would be the time of supply? Okay, so all of you have given the answer, and in fact, all of you are correct also. I want to see the answers, the students who have answered earlier. So everybody is saying in case one, answer will be 12th September. It's an easy case because date of removal of goods and date of invoice is falling on the same day. And that is why date of invoice is the time of supply for both the events. That means for this 50% as well as for this 50%, the time of supply will be 12th September. Okay, now you got this point. So I hope this point is clear to you all that the date of payment is totally irrelevant. In second case, if you see, 12th September is the date of removal. Now date of invoice is 27th August. So invoice has been issued before date of removal in this case. And the date of payment still remains the same. That is 29th August and on 1st of October. Okay, very good, very good. All of you are giving the correct answers. Very happy to see that at least you are understanding the concept. So in this case also, since we do not have to see the payment date. In fact, if you see this column itself, you don't have to see, because when this event or this element of supply does not matter in case while determining time of supply for goods, then why to see this? So if we completely ignore this, that is why I told you, you have to forget that payment date actually occurs in case of a normal time of supply. So in that case, what would be the time of supply? It would be the date on which invoice has actually been issued. Why we have not taken 12th September? Because that was the last date to issue the invoice. But since we have issued the invoice earlier, so that is why the time of supply will be the date on which invoice has been actually issued. Because date of actual issue of the actual issuance date of the invoice or last date, whichever is earlier we take. Now for the third point, I have already started getting answers. Memory, you are right. No, Memory, you are not right in fact. But others who have answered, Kirti, Rihana, Harsh, Payal, Sunil, P, Miss P, all of you are right. Astha is also right. Almas, all of you are right in your conclusion. Dhanush is also right here. So first of all, tell me what is the last date for issuance of invoice in this case? In fact, this coincides with our answer. So I will not be able to identify whether you are giving me the answer of time of supply or the last date. Last date for issuance of invoice. Here in this case, it would be the date of removal of goods. So it should be either before 12th September or up to on 12th September. So here the 12th September, the date of 12th September will be the date on which invoice should have been issued because the goods were removed on that date. However, he issued the, yes, all of you are giving the right answer. Soumya, Kirti, Varsha, then Anubhav, Nanush. 12th September is the date on which invoice should have been issued. But the invoice is actually issued on which date? किस date में actually में issue है? 2nd October को. तो अब इनवॉइस क्योंकि गलत इशू हुई है या कह लो कि हमारी लास्ट डेट के बाद इशू हुई है तो वी विल नॉट टेक दैट डेट फॉर डिटर्मिनिंग टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. तो हमारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई होगा 12th ऑफ सितंबर. इसलिए प्लीज कीप दिस पॉइंट इन माइंड दैट दी दिस वाज द सेकंड क्वेश्चन. इन केस ऑफ अ नॉर्मल सप्लाई, डेट ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस और लास्ट डेट ऑफ इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस जो कि डेट ऑफ रिमूवल ऑफ गुड्स ही होगा जनरली, उस केस में आपका टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई होगा डेट ऑफ एक्चुअल इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस और लास्ट डेट विच एवर इज अर्लियर. Now we come to the continuous supply of goods. Continuous supply of goods की केस में क्या होता है कि goods आप you are supplying the goods on a recurring basis or a continuing basis. That means it is not so that once you have supplied the goods to the recipient and the transaction is over. No. In installments, or you can say in the goods are being supplied on at a regular interval to the recipient, and we have a contract for that. Continuously the goods are being supplied. Now we'll take the example. Supply of gas. Many of you would be having the gas pipelines these days at your home. So tell me in the chat that how many of you know that yes, gas pipeline is a continuous supply, or any other example of the continuous supply which you can think of. Please let me know, because gas is a good, so it is being supplied on a recurrent basis. You are getting the gas bills, you must be getting the bills of the LPG gas. Yes, LPG gas line. Electricity is also goods, but electricity is exempt. So yes, it is continuous. So it is being on a continuous basis, it is being supplied, and a contract is there that yes, whatever requirement a recipient has, it will use the required quantity and then it will switch off the pipe, the stove. So the supply of goods provided or agreed to be provided continuously or on a recurring basis. Either continuously whenever the recipient requires, he is getting it, on a recurring basis. We have a recurring or regular intervals. At regular intervals, we are giving it. For which the supplier issues an invoice to the recipient on the regular basis. So on the same basis, the supplier issues the invoice. So whenever the payment on a periodic basis, the goods are being supplied, and on the same basis, the supplier is also issuing the invoice to the recipient. So periodic issuance of invoice is very important. And sometimes if any such goods, if government wants to notify, it can notify. That is a continuous supply of goods. Water supply can also be an example, but other examples, petroleum, yes, petroleum, if it is going through a pipeline, that means if we are getting the petroleum from a petrol on a petrol pump, that is not a continuous supply. We get the petrol pump and we come back home. So there is no contract, there is no provision on continuous basis. But yes, if industries are getting it through pipelines, any kind of oil, if they are getting on through pipelines, then that is a continuous supply of goods. So this milk by milkman, again, Prakash, I think it is not an example of continuous supply. But yes, you can say you have a contract with the newspaper supplier and he is supplying. You want to say because you are getting it supplied on a daily basis. So that could be milkman or newspaper. So now what would be the last date for issuance of invoice in case of a continuous supply? That would be before or at the time of these two events, either of these two events. Now, in case of a continuous supply of goods, either we are getting the regular payments or payments on periodical basis. So whenever we get, suppose we have decided that we will be supplying gas, or a company has decided that it will be supplying gas to the customers, and on 1st of every month, the payment will be received. The recipients have to make the payment. So that periodical payment date will be the date on which the last date on which invoice should be issued. Then in case of the successive statement of accounts. Successive statement of accounts is a statement which provides you the entire consumption details, that what was your opening, how much. It actually gives you the entire detail of the supply of particular goods which you are providing on a continuous basis, that initially this much goods were there, you have consumed this much in the during the month, and then any interest or whatever penalty, if in case it is there, then what is the final amount which is payable by the recipient to the supplier. If that statement is issued, then issuance of that statement will also trigger the issuance of invoice. So with that statement, the invoice should also be accompanied. Whenever this statement is issued, on that date or before that date, the invoice should be issued. Okay. Nidhi is saying, can you tell me by relating it with study material? Please elaborate, Nidhi. What do you want to say? You want the content to be discussed in the same flow as it is there in the study material? And if that is the case, please let me know. So this is the last date for issuance of invoice in case of continuous supply. I will take an example also for determining time of supply that will help you in understanding this point, that the in case of continuous supply, last date for issuance of invoice is either issuance of statement of accounts or receipt of payment, and both these events will take place on a periodic basis. Every month or maybe every quarter on a particular date, we are receiving these either the statement of accounts or we are receiving payment for our goods which we are supplying on a continuous basis. That will be the last date on which the invoice should be issued. Next is the goods sent or taken on approval for sale or return. Invoice should be issued. When invoice should be issued? I explained you that what is sale, a good sent on sale or sent or taken on approval for sale or return basis. When you are sending some goods on sale or return basis, what happens is you send the goods to the recipient, but sale does not fructify on the date you have removed the goods. Otherwise, in a normal case, okay, you want to relate it with the statutory provision. Okay, so next time I will take care of that, I will make a PPT, because here I have to open the study material. In case other students also want it, please let me know that if you're not able, you're not comfortable with this way, I will give you the statutory provision also. But whatever I'm discussing the statutory provisions only. Only thing is that I have not stressed so much on the sections or rules to keep it simple and to make it understandable to you. But you can please let me know, other students also can let me know if you are not able to understand in this way. I will change the manner. So good sentence. So I told you that in case of normal supply transaction, what happens? The day on which you have removed the goods, that day will be the day on which the supply will fructify, and you will say that on this date invoice should have been issued. This is what we have done in normal, we have seen in the normal case, date of removal of goods is the date on which invoice should have been issued. But in case of sale or return basis, the day when you are removing the good from your premises and you're giving it to buyer, on that date sale transaction is not there or supply transaction is not there. Why? Because supplier will see your goods, he will check them, and whatever, if it suits its requirements, if it matches its requirements, then it will uh, uh, give you the approval, or it will you know, it will provide you the information that yes, I want to buy this product or I have bought this product. So this sale will fructify on the day when the recipient say gives a go ahead and the supply takes place. But now what will be the date of issuance of invoice in this case? In that case, the invoice has to be issued either on the day when the supply transaction materializes, on the day when your recipient says that yes, goods are fine, I am taking them, that will be your supply date, and on that date you have to issue the invoice. That is before or at the time of the supply. So recipient is okay with the products and your goods are sold. He said that I will not return them, I am using them. Other case can be 6 months from the date of the removal. So in case your recipient does not return the goods within 6 months, अब recipient ने आपके goods देखे, उन्होंने रख लिए और अभी कुछ जवाब नहीं दिया, 6 महीने तक कोई भी जवाब नहीं आया, तो अब जीएसटी लॉ में क्या कहा जाता है? जीएसटी लॉ विल नॉट कंटिन्यू फॉर एवर, क्योंकि हमें तो कुछ, वी हैव टू फिक्स अ टाइमलाइन फॉर डिटर्मिनिंग द इनवॉइस. So for that, what we have done is, or GST law has provided, yes, it is earlier of 2 actually, but I was coming to that point, Anubhav. So 6 months from the date of removal. तो अगर 6 months तक आपके वापस नहीं recipient से, if recipient does, your sale supply transaction will be deemed to have taken place at the expiry or on the lapse of 6 months time period. So invoice has to be issued either on the date of supply, for example, first May is the date when we have given the goods to the recipient for sale on sale or return basis. Now, July, August, September, October, November. So in December, till December, he has not given. Now, maybe he wants to give the approval of the goods in December, or he wants to, in December, he realizes that actually the goods were fine and I want to use them. So we will wait only for 6 months. So 1st May is the date, then that means June, July, August, September, October, November. So 1st of November. Till 1st of November, if the supply transaction does not take place, then after that, we will deem that the supply has taken place, or you can say we will, the supplier is required to issue the invoice and supplier is required to pay GST on the same. See how you determine and how will you take this 6 months, you will ascertain this 6 months time. When I say on 1st May, the goods have moved out of my factory to the recipient. So 1st May, I have to exclude. And from 2nd May, I will start computing the 6 months period. First day is the date of cause of action, or since I say 6 months from the date of removal. So this from signifies that the actual date of removal will be excluded. And from the next day, I will start computing the 6 months period. And 1 month is equal to a calendar month. Recently, also a ruling has been there on this particular point, that when we say 1 month, then that means it's a calendar month. So if it's July, then it comprises of 31 days. If it's June, then it comprises of 30 days. But calendar month has to be taken when the word month is there in your law. But if the word 30 days is used, yes, February also 28 days will be a month. Or if it is a 29 days month, then it will be 29 days will comprise of a calendar month. But in case it had been mentioned 30 days, then 30 days have to be taken continuously, then month concept will not apply. But anyhow, the first date on which the event is taking place, that has to be excluded. So when I say 6 months from the date of removal, I will exclude date of removal, that is 1st May. From 2nd May, month will end at 1st June. Then from 2nd June to 1st July, from 2nd July to 1st August, from 2nd August to 1st September, then 2nd September to 1st October, and 2nd October to 1st November. This way, my 6 months period will lapse, and on the last day, I have to issue the invoice in case my recipient does not give me any indication or my sale does not fructifies. Hope this concept is clear to you all. Please give me a go ahead in the chat box. Someone is saying continuous supply का concept एक बार हिंदी में समझा दीजिए. कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई के लिए आपकी सप्लाईज कॉन्टिन्यूस बेसिस पे आपको करनी होती हैं. गुड्स आप कॉन्टिन्यूस बेसिस पे सप्लाई कर रहे हो थोड़ा थोड़ा करके, और उसके बाद आपने जैसे एक रेगुलर इंटरवल के बाद या तो आपको अपने रिसिपिएंट से पेमेंट मिल रही है, या आपका सक्सेसिव स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स, पीरियोडिकली आपकी स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स इशू हो रही है. तो जिस दिन आपकी स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स इशू होती है, उस दिन आपको अपनी इनवॉइस, या उससे पहले आपको अपनी इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी है. सिमिलरली, अगर आपका ये तरीका नहीं, आप पेमेंट रिसीव करते हो, पीरियोडिकली पेमेंट रिसीव हो रही है, तो जब पेमेंट आपको रिसीव हो रही है, उस दिन आप अपनी, उससे पहले या उस दिन तक अपनी इनवॉइस आप इशू कर दोगे. हर महीने की पेमेंट आपको नेक्स्ट मंथ के 5th को मिलती है, 5th ऑफ द नेक्स्ट मंथ. इस महीने के लिए पेमेंट 5th ऑफ नेक्स्ट मंथ को मिलती है, तो 5th ऑफ नेक्स्ट मंथ तक आपको इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी है. 5th ऑफ नेक्स्ट मंथ तक आपकी स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स आ जाती है, तो आपको उस दिन को इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी है. दिस इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई. आपकी ऑयल की सप्लाई है, गैस की सप्लाई है, जो आप रेकरिंग बेसिस पे करते जा रहे हो, गुड्स को आप सप्लाई कर रहे हो. Details of goods in normal course ka you want to understand again. Quickly we'll cover it so that we can cover some more topics today. We had some of the breaks also, because of that concept could not be covered. नॉर्मल सप्लाई के केस में आप इनवॉइस कब इशू करोगे? यू वांट टू नो निधि दी इनवॉइस प्रोविजंस ना? प्लीज लेट मी नो इन दी चैट. आई एम स्टार्टिंग विद दी नॉर्मल प्रोविजंस. नॉर्मल प्रोविजंस के, नॉर्मल सप्लाई के केस में लास्ट डेट इनवॉइस इशू करने की क्या है? अगर आपके गुड्स में कोई मूवमेंट इन्वॉल्व है, यानी आपके गुड्स को कहीं एक जगह से दूसरी जगह ले जाना है, तो उस केस में आपको इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी है ऑन और बिफोर द डेट ऑफ रिमूवल ऑफ द गुड्स. आपको गुड्स रिमूव करने ही पड़ेंगे अपनी फैक्ट्री से और कहीं ले जाने पड़ेंगे. तो जिस दिन आपने गुड्स बायर सेलर के प्रेमिसेस से, सप्लायर के प्रेमिसेस से रिमूव करे, उस दिन वो गुड्स जो हैं उस दिन आपका उस दिन आपका इनवॉइस इशू हो जाना चाहिए। वो लास्ट डेट है जब आपकी इनवॉइस इशू हो जानी चाहिए। उससे पहले भी आप अपनी इनवॉइस इशू कर सकते हो, लेकिन उस दिन आपको इनवॉइस इशू कर लेनी जब मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स इन्वॉल्व है। बट इन केस मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स इन्वॉल्व नहीं है, वो केस भी हमने बताया, उसमें दो केसेस हमने दो एग्जांपल्स लिए, और वो बहुत अच्छे एग्जांपल्स है समझने के लिए कि आपने एक साइट पे कोई बहुत बड़ी मशीनरी असेंबल की है, तो वो मशीनरी जो है उसके आपने पार्ट्स चाहे अलग अलग जगह से आपने लाके असेंबल किए, और जब वो मशीनरी वहां पर साइट पर आ गई, तो अब वो आपको आपने एज इट इज अपने बायर को बोला ये आपकी साइट पे मशीनरी हमने बना दी है, असेंबल कर दी है, नाउ यू कैन यूज इट। उस दिन आपको इनवॉइस इशू कर देना है उसके लिए, क्योंकि वो आपकी डिलीवरी डेट हो गई। आपने कहा अब मैंने मशीनरी की डिलीवरी आपको दे दी है, आप इसको यूज कर लो, वो आपकी डिलीवरी हो गई, यानी कि डिलीवरी ऑफ गुड्स इज द लास्ट डेट ऑन विच इनवॉइस शुड बी इशूड। अगर आपने कोई गुड्स हैं जो आपके, जैसे अभी एग्जांपल हमें स्टूडेंट्स में से ही मिला कि कारपेंटर आपके घर में ही आपका फर्नीचर बना रहा है, लेकिन अपने मटेरियल से बना रहा है वो, और आपका कोई इंटरफेरेंस उस तरह से नहीं है कि कैसा बनाना है क्या है, वो भी सकता है। खैर एज अ रेसिपिएंट आप उसका वो बता सकते हो क्या डिजाइन क्या चीज चाहिए, बट वो आपके प्रेमिसेस में सारा मटेरियल वो खुद ही लेकर उसने वो गुड्स वहां पे बनाए, और जिस दिन वो फर्नीचर रेडी हो गया उसने आपको हैंड ओवर कर दिया वहीं आपके घर में। तो goods are being, you are making the goods available to the recipient in that location। उसको वो केस में भी इनवॉइस आपको उस दिन, जिस दिन आप वो गुड्स अपने रेसिपिएंट को अवेलेबल करा दोगे कि आज से ये गुड्स आपके हैं, वो दैट डेट विल बी द डेट ऑन विच इनवॉइस शुड बी इशूड। उस दिन आपको इनवॉइस इशू कर देनी है। अब इसमें कुछ क्वेश्चंस, सम स्टूडेंट्स आर आस्किंग क्वेश्चन रिगार्डिंग द कैलेंडर मंथ। कैलेंडर मंथ, मिस पी इज सेइंग calendar month means irrespective of any date of that month, one month will be counted at the end of that month. Correct. You have to take the full month, calendar month. If I say 2nd February is the date on which the removal has taken place, and we have to take 6 months from the date of removal, so 2nd February I have to exclude, from 3rd February to 2nd March, from 3rd March to 2nd April, then from 3rd April to 2nd May, and this way we will continue. Successive statement of accounts is a statement where you get a complete account of the supply which you have made on a continuous basis। क्योंकि एक लेखा जोखा रखना पड़ेगा आपको कि हाँ कितनी सप्लाई हो गई, हमने कितना कंजम्पशन किया, रेसिपिएंट ने कितना कंजम्पशन किया किस दिन, उस बेसिस पे कितनी कितनी कंजम्पशन हुई, कुछ उसका एडवांस था। सब कुछ सेट ऑफ करने के बाद, सब कुछ सेटल करने के बाद जो फाइनली आपका पेबल अमाउंट बनता है, स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स वो रिफ्लेक्ट करता है। उस बेसिस पे आपके सप्लायर को इशू करनी है आपको इनवॉइस। या तो वो स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स के बेसिस पे करेगा, या फिर आपकी पेमेंट सिंपल ड्यू है, आपका जो है वो बिल दे देता आपको, एक वो मीटर रीडिंग जैसे उसमें होता है गैस पाइपलाइंस वगैरह में, उस बेसिस पे वो जो है आपको मतलब आप उस बेसिस पे पेमेंट आपकी ड्यू हो जाती है, और जिस दिन आपकी पेमेंट ड्यू हो जाती है वो उस दिन इनवॉइस इशू कर देता है। अगर वो आपको पहले स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स भेजता है तो फिर उसका इट डिपेंड्स विच टाइप ऑफ सेटलमेंट और एग्रीमेंट यू हैव। अगर स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स वो आपको सेंड करता है तो स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट्स के बेसिस पर ही उसमें दैट वुड बी द लास्ट डेट फॉर इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस। सौम्या सिंह, हाउ टू आइडेंटिफाई वेदर अ सप्लाई इज नॉर्मल और कॉन्टिन्यूस। उसको देखने के लिए सौम्या आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा कि अगर एक बार सप्लाई के बाद आपकी ट्रांजेक्शन खत्म हो गई, रिकरिंग मतलब पीरियोडिकली आप सेल कर रहे हो, या आप रिकरिंग बेसिस, या तो आप कॉन्टिन्यूसली वो चीज सप्लाई कर रहे हो जैसे कि हमने बताया ऑयल गैस वगैरह के केस में, या फिर आपका एक रिकरिंग नेचर है कि हाँ हर महीने की, हर महीने हम जैसे गुड्स के केस में हमने बोला कि कुछ गुड्स आपको हर महीने चाहिए होते हैं, और आपने एक एग्रीमेंट कर लिया पूरे टाइम का। मेन बात यह है वो एग्रीमेंट आपका शुरू में एंटर हो जाना चाहिए कि इस साल हर महीने हम आपको मे बी 15th ऑफ द मंथ वी विल सप्लाई दिस मच क्वांटिटी ऑफ गुड्स टू यू। वो शुरू में ही एग्रीमेंट हो गया, और उसके बाद और आपने बताया नेक्स्ट मंथ आप उसकी पेमेंट करते जाओगे, सो दैट विल बिकम अ कॉन्टिन्यूअस सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स, क्योंकि वहां पे एग्रीमेंट शुरू में हो गया, वो एक कॉन्टिन्यूस पीरियड के लिए है, और रिकरिंग नेचर है, आपको रिकरिंग और आपकी इन्वॉइसेस भी आप पीरियोडिकली इशू करते जा रहे हो, दैट इज द कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई ऑफ गुड्स। नॉर्मल सप्लाई में अदर केस में जब गुड्स सप्लाई होता है तब इनवॉइस जनरेट करेंगे। नॉर्मल सप्लाई में जब नॉर्मल सप्लाई के केस में आप इनवॉइस तभी जनरेट करोगे जब आप गुड्स को रिमूव कर रहे हो। लेकिन हाँ अगर अदर केस है तो उसमें जब आपने डिलीवरी बोला कि आज से आप ये गुड्स आपके हो गए, अब आप इनको आपके वहीं पे प्रेमिसेस में ही है, रेसिपिएंट के प्रेमिसेस में ही है, बट यू हैव हैंडेड इट ओवर टू द रेसिपिएंट, उस दिन आप इनवॉइस इशू करोगे। इन दिस केस इनवॉइस इशूड अर्लियर ऑफ डेट ऑफ अप्रूवल इज रिसीव्ड, और यस ईशान यू आर राइट, दैट इज द केस। I had missed one of the queries. ठीक है, ये तो हो गया. Prakash is saying in any other case before delivery invoice can issue. Yes, before delivery. When you say पहले भी कर सकते हो. आपको लगता है you are nearing the end of the completion of the work. जैसे आपने जो भी आप काम कर रहे हो, आप मशीनरी असेंबल कर रहे हो या उससे पहले आपको लगता है you can issue the invoice, तो आप उससे पहले भी कर सकते हो. और जिस दिन आपने डिलीवरी दी है आप उस दिन भी इनवॉइस इशू कर सकते हो. ठीक है. So this we have come to the, we have understood time limit for issuance of invoice under section 31. इसमें whichever is earlier वाला point है. I hope every one of you is now clear with this point. We have taken this example also. This is another example of supply of the continuous supply of goods on a continuous basis. यहाँ पे हमने issuance of statement of accounts लिया है कि इस दिन आपकी statement of accounts issue हुई है, ये आपकी इनवॉइस एक्चुअल जिस दिन इशू हुआ है और इस दिन आपकी पेमेंट रिसीव हुई है. देयर आर 4 एग्जांपल्स. क्विकली गिव मी दी आंसर because today what we planned we are not able to cover, but maybe we'll keep some intermediate in the meantime. We may keep some other session, but we'll be covering everything, don't worry. Case 1, I am looking for the answers first of all. स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट 2 फरवरी को आई है, इनवॉइस 2 फरवरी को है और पेमेंट 5 फरवरी को है. इसमें तो नो डाउट बहुत ही इजी था ये वाला तो, बट आई हैव गॉट करेक्ट आंसर्स फ्रॉम एवरीवन. प्रकाश, अनुभव, राजवीर, बनीप्रीत, सौम्या, ऑल ऑफ यू हैव गिवन करेक्ट आंसर. 2 फरवरी विल बी दी टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. और वो कैसे निकला, हमारी एक्चुअल डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस ही हम इसमें ले सकते हैं, क्योंकि हमारी जो लास्ट डेट फॉर इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस है, हमने बताया ना स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट कब इशू हुई है. स्टेटमेंट ऑफ अकाउंट 2 फरवरी को इशू हुई है, उसी दिन हमने इनवॉइस भी इशू कर दी है. एंड देयरफॉर टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी ईदर ऑफ द टू. एज वी हैव सीन, डेट ऑफ पेमेंट तो रेलेवेंट है ही नहीं, चाहे कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई हो चाहे कोई सी भी सप्लाई हो. डेट ऑफ पेमेंट तो सिर्फ हम 2 केसेस में देखते हैं, कॉम्पोजिशन सप्लायर या फिर सप्लाई ऑफ स्पेसिफाइड एक्शनेबल क्लेम्स. बट ये दोनों केसेस अनलेस एंड अनटिल स्पेसिफिकली नहीं लिखा हुआ है तो आप नहीं मानोगे क्वेश्चन के अंदर. यू हैव टू ignore these 2 cases unless it is specifically mentioned in the question. ठीक है. अच्छा, I am getting answers for all 3 actually. 2 Feb तो is okay. Now second case में भी people are giving start giving answers. Ishan is saying 2 February and Nidhi is saying second वाले में 31st January. Then Soumya is saying 2 February. Banipreet is saying 31st January. So second वाले केस में 2 आंसर्स आ रहे हैं मेरे पास, February, 2 February और 31st January. एक one question which all of you kept asking in between was कि ma'am can we issue the invoice before the last date of issuance of invoice? I said yes. If you want to issue the invoice before the last date for issuing the issuance of invoice as per GST law, you are permitted to issue that invoice. And in case you have issued that invoice before that, then that will be your time of supply. So now I have started getting correct answers as 31st January, but still few of you are writing 2 February. 2 February is the last date on which invoice has to be issued. But मेरी जो actual invoice है वो 31st January को issue हो गई थी. इसका मतलब मैंने पहले ही issue कर दी थी. तो ये सिर्फ continuous supply में नहीं लगेगा, ये concept सब जगह applicable है. अगर आपकी invoice in relation to goods you have issued before the last date for issuance of invoice, then actual date will be your time of supply, whichever is earlier, actual date or last date for issuance of invoice. दोबारा रिपीट कर रही हूँ, प्लीज गेट इट इम्प्रिंटेड इन योर माइंड्स कि आपको टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई कैसे निकालना है, एक्चुअल डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस और लास्ट डेट फॉर इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस. उसके बेसिस पे आप टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई निकालोगे. तो यहाँ पर एक्चुअल डेट पहले थी, तो एक्चुअल डेट विल बी आर टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. तो टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई विल बी 31st January. Then third case में what will be the time of supply? Again, please let me know. 2 Feb. Third case, unanimously everyone is saying 2 Feb. Asta is saying date of payment cannot be considered as date of periodical payments. Actually, here payment is not being made periodically. So statement of accounts has to be seen because statement of accounts is being made on a periodical basis. Date of payment, it would be mentioned in the question that this is the periodical payment. You are right, Asa, you have in fact noticed the correct point. But here, since statement of accounts is being mentioned, periodical, this will be provided to you in the question. Don't worry. In my example, I did not mention it. But now I am telling all of you that payment is not on a recurring basis, he can make it on any point of time. But since in our example, it so happened that in these three cases, he made the payment on the same day, but that is not the case. It is not on a periodical basis that he will make the payment on the same day. Statement of accounts has to be generated on a particular date, and on the basis of that, invoice is issued. Yes, so the time of supply in this case, everybody is saying unanimously it is 2nd Feb. Okay. Then in the fourth case is again very simple. Only thing is the date of payment has changed in fourth case. So does it make any difference? No, it does not make any difference. So in that case also, Harsha, you're right, Rajveer, it will not make any effect on the time of supply. So all of you are right. And the time of supply will be actual date of issuance of invoice, that is 2nd February. I want to take examples of this particular portion so that we are clear, and we will discuss the concept of reverse charge. We will do the questions and examples in the next class. So maybe if possible, I might keep a class in between to take these concepts, because today I had planned a lot to be covered, at least full goods concept I wanted to cover, and I wanted to take a GST quiz also, but due to some urgency in the at the office level, I could not take all the concepts which were to be discussed, but I will try to keep a class in between the next class if possible. And I want all of you to give me a go ahead if I keep a class in Saturday or Sunday. If in case I keep, will it be okay to you or not? Please give me in the chat box your view on the same. Date of payment, how do we define? Okay, that I had to take actually. In fact, I don't think I will be able to take the reverse charge. Before that, I have to tell you the date of payment also. That I will tell you how to take the date of payment. What is the definition of date of payment? Okay, if issuance, Ms. P is saying if issuance of statement of accounts and receipt of periodical payment are on different dates, which one to take? So one, in that case, it depends on the supplier on which date it wants, because if both of them are periodical, if both of them are being issued on a periodical basis, then supplier has to see the earlier of the, preferably it should take the earlier of the two dates. If suppose the supply statement of accounts is being generated on one date and the payment is also fixed on another date, then in that case it should take either of the two, and the earlier of the two it can take for issuing the invoice. Rajveer is saying yes, I am getting go ahead from all of you. Now I want those students who have a problem, so please let me know. I will see which side is more. And in case few of you have problem, then you can please see the recorded class, because I wanted to cover this concept. Let's see. This is an example of sale on approval basis. X send goods to Y on sale on approval basis on 20th April. Y approves the goods on 15th November. Now, what would be the time of supply? If you have understood the calendar concept, we have 3 lectures for time of supply. I have to see. If we have 3 lectures, then it's not an issue. Let me confirm, Harsh. Be very, very careful in answering this question. And most of the answers which I'm initial answers which I'm getting is 15 November. Sale on approval basis. Goods have been sent to Y on sale on approval basis. Okay. So what is the, in fact, you can tell me the time of supply. I will not ask you last date for issuance of invoice, because that will give you in the answer. For determining the answer, you have to first of all ascertain the last date for issuance of invoice. So Prakash and Rajveer has given me some answer. Priyanshi is right. Ishan has done a bit of goof up. Let me explain you the concept which some of you might commit mistake. Whenever we are computing any time limit under GST law, or you can say under any law, the date of cause of action, the date on which I said 6 months from the date of removal of the goods. So 6 months from the date of removal of the goods, that means the date of removal of the goods. When I use the word from, that particular date has to be excluded. So 20th April, you will exclude. You will start computing from 21st April. 21st April to 20th May, that will complete 1 month, because how do we compute month? If I have to say in April, so I will say 1st April to 30th April is 1 month. Okay. Similarly, 21st April to 20th May will be 1 month. 21st May to 20th June will be 1 month. 21st June to 20th July will be 1 month. This way we have to compute the 6 months period. Now, based on this, give the answer. This example is 20th April. Nidhi is saying yes, Nidhi. This example is of 20th April. So Miss P has given correct answer. GST subject has become interesting. Concepts are cleared and it is easy to retain as examples are taken. Oh, thank you, Varsha. If you are understanding this, at least it gives me a go ahead that yes, you are liking this way of teaching. Okay, Anubhav is also saying 3 lectures. So in case it is there, you will be accordingly informed. And all of you should join the WhatsApp group because it keeps you updated regarding the classes. So some of you are saying 20th April, some are saying 15 November, some are saying 20th October, some are saying 21st October, few are giving 19th October, but majority goes with 20th October and one answer I have got 20th December. So how this has to be computed? Let's see. See, 20th April is the date on which goods have been removed. So first month will end on 20th May because from 21st we will start computing. Then 2nd May, see, last date for issuance of invoice will be the date on which 6 months period will end. So those of you who are giving 21st October as the answer, you have to review that or you have to keep that point in mind. Last date on which 6 months period will end. So first month will end on 20th May, then 20th June, 20th July, 20th August, 20th September, 20th October. This ends our 6 months period. So this is the date which we were actually looking for. Yes, Miss P, if any date has, oh, Prakash has mistakenly written that answer. I understood because December could not be the case. So you had mistakenly written. It was actually the October. So 20, yes, if any month has 31 days, if any month has 28 days, any month has 29 days, doesn't matter to us. We will take from one date to another date because calendar month means, sorry, month in GST law means calendar month. Time and again, courts have reaffirmed this point that whenever you are taking month, General Clauses Act also has confirmed this point. These are the points you always commit mistake in exams because this is something which students are not very familiar with or they are generally ignoring this point. डेट देखी फटाफट से आंसर निकाल दिया बट उसमें गड़बड़ हो जाती है तो 20th आंसर 20th October is answer of this example. Sure, this is the answer 20th October because यहाँ पर 6 महीने कंप्लीट हो रहे हैं तो एक्चुअल सेल ट्रांजेक्शन 15 नवंबर को हो रही है बट हमें तो विच एवर इज अर्लियर लेना था हमें दोनों में से पहला वाला ट्रांजेक्शन लेना था अब सबका आंसर 20th October हो गया फाइनली ऑल ऑफ यू अंडरस्टूड तो हमारा जो लास्ट डेट फॉर इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस है वो ही हमारा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई होगा क्योंकि अभी यहाँ पे इनवॉइस इशू हुई ही नहीं है हमने अपने क्वेश्चन के अंदर इनवॉइस के बारे में बताया ही नहीं था तो इनवॉइस नहीं इशू हुई होगी लेकिन लास्ट डेट जो इशुएंस की थी आप उसी को ही डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस मानोगे या आप उसी को ही टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई मानोगे जो कि 20th October था एंड दैट इज वाई आंसर इज 20th October. आई होप दिस कॉन्सेप्ट इज क्लियर टू यू ऑल. This is another example, but time does not permit me to take this example. I want to cover the concept of date of receipt of payment. दो डेट ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट का जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो अब हमारे टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई के लिए रेलिवेंट नहीं है दैट इज वाई आई केप्ट इट एट द एंड क्योंकि कुछ बच्चों को ऐसा लगेगा इसको पढ़ के कि ये फिर से बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट है वो इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है बट वी शुड नो दिस क्योंकि अभी देखो दो सप्लायर्स तो हैं कॉम्पोजिशन सप्लायर एंड सप्लायर ऑफ स्पेसिफाइड actionable claims who are required to compute or determine their time of supply on the basis of the date of payment also if it precedes the date of invoice that means advance पे ये दो suppliers tax pay करते हैं तो इसलिए date of receipt of payment क्या होगा that we should know theoretically we should know this पहला देखो so we have to see which events are relating to payment और उसमें से कौन से important है या कौन से relevant है for determining date of receipt of payment. Sunil is saying कि हमें ओनली डेट टू डेट देखना है हाँ मंथ के लिए यू हैव टू सी डेट टू डेट वो आपके लिए इजी तरीका है कंप्यूट करने का बट अगर आप उसको समझते हुए उसको कंसेप्चुअली समझो तो जैसे आपने अगर मई का मंथ आप कंप्यूट कर रहे हो तो 1st May to 31st May आपका पूरा मंथ कंप्यूट होगा अगर अप्रैल का देखोगे तो 1st April to 30th April तो अप्रैल में 30 डेज में एक मंथ कंप्लीट हो गया मई में 31 डेज में एक मंथ कंप्लीट हुआ जुलाई में 31 डेज में एक मंथ कंप्लीट होगा तो सितंबर में 30 डेज में कंप्लीट हो जाएगा उससे हमें मतलब ही नहीं है तो हम फर्स्ट से हमारा मंथ कब कंप्लीट होगा पहले जो डेट हमने देखी जैसे हमने 21st October से निकाला है तो हम नेक्स्ट मंथ की पहले वाली डेट पे पहुंच जाएंगे क्योंकि तभी हमारा एक महीना कंप्लीट होगा अगर हम नेक्स्ट स्टेट पे पहुंचते हैं तो हमें वो हमारा क्वेश्चन जैसी भी टाइम लिमिट बताती है, इस यहाँ पे टाइम लिमिट क्या थी, 6 मंथ्स का कंप्लीशन। तो हर कैलेंडर मंथ के बाद हम आगे बढ़ते रहे। ओके, थैंक यू सौम्या फॉर कंफर्मिंग। सो वील प्रोसीड अकॉर्डिंगली, और डोंट वरी, every concept will be discussed in detail and properly in all the classes, don't worry। और जितने अच्छे से कॉन्सेप्ट समझाया जा सकता है, जितना भी इंटरेस्टिंग बना के, आई एम ट्राइंग माई बेस्ट टू मेक द कॉन्सेप्ट इंटरेस्टिंग फॉर यू, engaging for you, and I would definitely want to have feedback from you, barring me, or for the disturbances which we had in the class today. Apart from that, if you find this way of teaching interesting, I want to know that, so that I can continue this in other classes. Or if you have some suggestions, you are most welcome for that also. Now let's come back to the date of issuance of invoice. Sorry, date of receiving payment. That what is, how to determine that date? First is the date of issuance of check, जिस दिन आपने अपना check issue किया, is that date relevant for determining the date of receiving payment by the supplier? Because यहाँ पे जो हमारा second event था, जो हमने बोला बिल्कुल भी relevant नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी हमें समझना पड़ेगा। So date of issuance of check, no, it is not relevant. Okay. Then second is date of credit in the supplier's bank account. Supplier के bank account में पैसे पहुंच गए. Is this event relevant? Rajveer is saying yes. Anubhav, Prakash, everybody is saying it is relevant. Yes, it is relevant. So, क्योंकि अब पैसे पहुंच गए हैं, चेक इशू किया था तो कुछ भी हो सकता था, चेक तो कहीं भी जा सकता है। So it is relevant. Third event is date on which payment is recorded in the books of accounts of supplier. अब कुछ लोगों को सोचने से लगेगा इसकी जरूरत नहीं है, पैसे एक्चुअल में पहुंचने चाहिए, वही डेट ऑफ पेमेंट होता है। जैसे दिस इज द जनरल वे ऑफ थिंकिंग, वी शुड गेट द मनी देन वी कैन से पेमेंट इज रिसीव्ड, वी आर ओनली कंसर्न विद द मनी बीइंग रिसीव्ड इन आवर अकाउंट। बट एक्चुअली sometimes it can happen, you have received the check and you have got the payment, but you are not making entry in your books of accounts, or you have entered it in the books of accounts but you have not deposited in the bank account. सो गवर्नमेंट हैज टेकन बोथ द इवेंट्स, कि आपने अपनी बुक्स में अगर रिकॉर्ड कर लिया तो आपके पास चेक, तो इसका मतलब आ चुका है, आप उसे बैंक में नहीं डाल रहे हो या तो, और आप सोच रहे हो कि मेरा टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई डेफर होता जाएगा, तो यू कैन नॉट डू दैट। वो आपको, हाँ, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दिस इवेंट इज ऑल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, बनीप्रीत सिंह। तो इसीलिए गवर्नमेंट ने इसको भी लूप इन कर लिया फॉर डिटर्मिनिंग दी डेट ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट बाय द सप्लायर। जिस दिन आपने अपनी बुक्स में एंटर किया वो डेट भी आपके लिए रेलिवेंट है। लेकिन अब इसमें से कौन सी डेट होगी, डेट ऑफ रिसीट ऑफ पेमेंट बाय दी सप्लायर? ये दो इवेंट्स हमने देखा, यही दो डेट्स इंपॉर्टेंट थी, डेट ऑफ इश्यू ऑफ चेक इज नॉट इंपॉर्टेंट, विच एवर इज अर्लियर। इन दोनों में से जो भी डेट पहले लोगे। और ये क्यों किया गया, क्योंकि ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि आपको चेक रिसीव हुआ, आपने सोचा अभी टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई इस महीने पैसे नहीं देने गवर्नमेंट को, अगले महीने जमा कर देंगे, 28 29 में मिला, आपने बुक्स में एंट्री कर दी बट आगे चेक नहीं जमा किया। ऐसा करोगे तो चेक टैक्स तो जमा करना पड़ेगा। कीवर्ड हियर इज दिस, क्योंकि when the tax is being we are determining time of supply for forward charge, that means the supplier has to pay the tax, और supplier के लिए dates relevant होंगी उसके अकाउंट में कब पैसे आ रहे हैं, या उसका अकाउंट कब, मतलब उसका अकाउंट कब क्रेडिट हो रहा है और उसके अकाउंट में और उसकी बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट्स में कब एंट्री हो रही है। सो दीज टू इवेंट्स हैव टू बी सीन फ्रॉम सप्लायर्स अकाउंट। अभी इसकी इंपॉर्टेंस आपको समझ नहीं आ रही होगी कि सप्लायर वर्ड क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है, ठीक है उसी के अकाउंट में तो होगा। जब हम रिवर्स चार्ज के कॉन्सेप्ट पे आएंगे तब मैं इस कॉन्सेप्ट पे फिर से आऊंगी, and then you will be able to appreciate, I will come back to this concept when we will be doing the reverse charge provisions time of supply. Then you will understand there the date of payment is different, there this supplier gets converted into recipient. So this is the difference. In forward charge we have to take the date of payment from supplier's point of view, तो date of credit supplier का देखेंगे, entry in the books of account supplier की देखेंगे। बट जब हम रिवर्स चार्ज पे चले जाएंगे देन देयर इज अ डिफरेंस, वी विल सी दैट, वी विल नॉट गेट कंफ्यूज्ड। रेलेवेंट का क्या मतलब होता है? अच्छा, रेलेवेंट मतलब इंपॉर्टेंट, जो कि आप बोलो कि जरूरी है उस चीज को मतलब करने के लिए, उस इवेंट को डिटरमिन करने के लिए जो चीज जरूरी है, मतलब हमारे लिए अभी भी ये चीज इरेलीवेंट कहने का मतलब होता है वो हमारे काम की नहीं है, रेलेवेंट मतलब हमारे काम की है, ये वाले इवेंट्स हमारे काम के थे, ये अभी हमें जरूरी थे टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई डिटरमिन करने के लिए। Chauhan is saying when supplier never make entry in account and never credited in bank, then अब आपके बैंक अकाउंट में पैसे ही नहीं आए तो फिर आप टैक्स जमा मतलब तब आप डेट ऑफ वो नहीं लोगे पेमेंट। खैर सप्लाई गुड्स के केस में इनवॉइस तो इशू करोगे ही, वो भी नहीं करोगे तो फिर आप जब पैसे ही नहीं आए, इनवॉइस इशू नहीं हुई है, कुछ नहीं हुआ, तो फिर गवर्नमेंट विल से कोई बात नहीं, टैक्स मत पे करो। आरसीएम इजी है या इससे इजी? आरसीएम इससे इजी है, यहाँ आपको सारे बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट समझ आएगा। अनुभव आपको ये बहुत मुश्किल लगा तो आरसीएम इससे थोड़ा इजी है वैसे। Okay, Soumya is saying pictorial presentation is interesting. In fact, I want to know special feedback of all of you to on the pictorial representation also, because I have put in efforts in that. So I want to know whether it actually helps you or not. Because अगर help करता है, then only I should continue with that. So I have got feedback from some of you, and I want feedback from you on this point also, that whether pictorial representation is useful or not. So all of you are saying it is useful. Okay, Astha has a doubt in reverse charge. I have a doubt in case specified services like railway, postal, vessel, etc. will come in forward charge for residential property or can be covered in 5A, 5B. 5A says residential property. तो residential dwelling तो railway की मतलब हो भी सकती है, खैर ऐसा नहीं है, railway that is to be used for the residential purpose. 5B is commercial property. So if railway is specifically excluded, okay, you are saying it is specifically excluded in a specific entry. So whether their renting will get covered here. In case of the commercial property, supplier has to be unregistered. So railway unregistered हो ऐसा हो नहीं सकता, railway के बहुत quantum of transactions होता है, तो वहां तो it will not get covered, मतलब वहां reverse charge नहीं लगेगा। सेकेंड वाला जो रेजिडेंशियल ड्वेलिंग वाला केस है, उसमें वी हैव टू सी ऑन केस टू केस बेसिस। आई विल सी दैट एंड आई विल लेट यू नो। ओके, पिक्टोरियल प्रेजेंटेशन इज यूजफुल। वर्षा is saying राजवीर, तेज प्रकाश, हर्ष, प्रेम, ईशान, मिलन, and then Kirti, Bemuri. Okay. Priyanshi is also saying continue as it is, ma'am. Easy to understand. After reading module, it gets easier and able to relate PPT with concept. If you say I will next time, I will show you module also in between. So after covering a concept, we'll see the module and we'll see everything is covered in the from the module, because what I am teaching is from the module only. We truly follow the module, so we are reading. Will PPT be uploaded on portal? Definitely, Chauhan, it will be uploaded on the portal. In between, I had a query which I left. RCM, I think somebody was saying. आरसीएम क्या होता है निधि? आरसीएम तो अभी हमने बहुत अच्छे से डिस्कस किया था क्लास में पहले। आरसीएम मतलब जहां पे आपके रिसिपिएंट को टैक्स डिपॉजिट करना है गवर्नमेंट को। अगर डिफॉल्ट प्रोविजन ये होता है कि सप्लायर को टैक्स डिपॉजिट करना है, लेकिन कुछ स्पेसिफाइड सर्विसेज, कुछ स्पेसिफाइड गुड्स के केस में गवर्नमेंट ने ये नोटिफाई कर दिया है कि यहाँ पर रिसिपिएंट ही टैक्स पे करेगा। तो वहां पर जब आपका रिसीप पे करेगा मतलब गवर्नमेंट को डिपॉजिट करेगा, जाएगा तो हमेशा उसी की पॉकेट से। अगर फॉरवर्ड चार्ज में भी पे हो रहा था, यानी कि आपका सप्लायर भी टैक्स पे कर रहा था, तो वो आपसे लेकर ही पे कर रहा है, रिसिपेंट से टैक्स रिकवर करता है और गवर्नमेंट को डिपॉजिट कर देता है। ये बार बार मैं क्यों समझाती हूँ, क्योंकि ये कंसेप्चुअली समझने के लिए बहुत जरूरी है। ऐसा नहीं है कि रिसिपेंट अगर आरसीएम लगा दिया तो रिसिपेंट को उस तरह से कोई नुकसान है पैसों का, उसको सिर्फ डिपॉजिट करने की लाइबिलिटी बढ़ जाती है, कंप्लायंस रिक्वायरमेंट्स बढ़ जाते हैं उसके। तो इसीलिए ये पॉइंट थोड़ा समझने के लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है। निशा, आई विल अपलोड द पीपीटी, डोंट वरी, यू कैन रिवाइज फ्रॉम दैट। I will try to upload only till the extent we have covered, because PPTs have more concepts. Exemption, I will ask the respective faculty to upload. Okay, I will continue with the current format, Anubhav. In fact, this is the crux of today's point, that time of supply of goods under forward charge, यही दो इवेंट्स हैं जो आपको देखने हैं। अब ये कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई है तो ये कैसे निकलेगा? अगर ये आपका सेल ऑफ गुड्स ऑन अप्रूवल बेसिस पे है तो, और नॉर्मल केस है तो उस केस में आप लास्ट डेट कैसे निकालोगे वो चेंज होता जाएगा, लेकिन लास्ट डेट जो आपकी इनवॉइस इशू करने के उसके बाद आपका टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई नहीं फॉल कर सकता। उससे पहले अगर आपने इनवॉइस इशू कर दी तो आपका टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई वो होगा, मतलब इन दोनों में जो भी अर्लियर है। ये सेक्शन में नहीं लिखा है बट ये बाय डिफॉल्ट है, दोनों में से जो भी पहले होगा वही आपको लेना है, ठीक है। Mixed supply में it is actually, if I start taking other queries, our concept will go. Read this example. In fact, this let me see if I will cover these 2-3 examples and then we'll wind up the class. We'll take in the next class. I hope that will be an uninterrupted and interesting class. You all will enjoy the concept. Reverse charge बहुत interesting concept है. In fact अभी forward charge में तो थोड़ा सा ये भी government ने जो गड़बड़ की कि पहले date of receipt of payment डाला फिर उसके बाद हटा दिया. But this thing is not there in reverse charge. So reverse charge would be easier to understand. हाँ ठीक है उसमें एक time computation वाली चीज है जो हमें निकालनी है. 31 days some of you were writing. So FCM we discuss and RCM in next class. So this we have already discussed. Mixed supply में two or more individual supplies are there, then ma'am it will cover both taxable and exempt. हाँ mixed supply में वो वाला concept नहीं. That is there in composite supply asta. That two taxable supplies have to be there, but for that also different interpretations are there. Some people take taxable includes exempt. So, for example, in healthcare services, if a hospital is providing some taxable, some exempt services, they can make it composite, and it is an SSC friendly view also. So, this is also one of the views. There are both views here, but in case of mixed supply, no such thing is there. Now, let us see this question. Phoenix Private Limited entered into a contract for 100 office chairs on 21st August. This is the date of agreement. Is it important? Do we need to take this into consideration for time of supply? Goods are removed from the warehouse on 5th September, right? Sunil, Almas. Okay, Almas has find out the answer itself. And then Joy has paid the 30% of the contract value on 21st August and 70% on 10th September. So these are the 4 dates which are available with us. Now, what would be the time of supply? Happy to see all of you have answered it correctly. The Almas, Rajveer, Prem, Priyanshi, Prakash, Banipreet, Varsha. In the previous slide, I told you नॉर्मल केस है ये कोई कॉम्पोजिशन डीलर नहीं है हम कॉम्पोजिशन डीलर स्पेसिफाइड एक्शनेबल क्लेम्स नहीं डिस्कस करेंगे दिस इज नॉट फॉर इंटरमीडिएट और इट इज फॉर इंटरमीडिएट बट जनरली वी डोंट आस्क तो आपको इसके अंदर नॉर्मल पॉइंट ही याद रखना है दैट इज डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस एक्चुअल डेट ऑफ इनवॉइस और लास्ट डेट फॉर इशुएंस ऑफ इनवॉइस so 5th September someone is saying 10th September Rohan, why it is 10th September? Let me tell you. All of you are saying 5th. Ishan, Soumya, everybody is saying 5th. Those who are giving a different answer, let me tell you. 21st August is completely out of picture. It is sale agreement date. We had initially excluded it from the events to be considered for determining time of supply. ये 21st August or 10th September is date of payment. And you know that the date of payment is not relevant for determining the time of supply of goods by virtue of notification 66 by 2017. Time and again, I will repeat it. Next class also, I will start with this and I want to see how many of you say date of payment. Then it would be a real discouragement that even after repeating so much, don't take receipt of payment as a time of supply. So what is left is the date of removal of goods, and that is the last date for issuance of invoice. Yes, Anubhav, you are right. So some of you wanted the WhatsApp group link. So we'll be sharing you in the chat. We'll share it in the evening batch. Evening class, we'll share the WhatsApp group link. You can copy that and you can join the group. That will keep you updated regarding all the classes. That will be very useful for you. So 5th September is the last date on invoice should have been issued, and this is our time of supply in this case. I hope it is clear to all of you. Very simple example, but let us see how many of you give the correct answer. B Limited removes the goods for delivery to C Limited on 10th June. So goods have been removed on 10th June, invoice has been issued on 12th June, and payment has been received on 20th June. What is the correct answer? Okay, now it is clear to Varsha. Prakash, Anubhav, Ishan, Prem, Milan, Soumya, Nidhi, Almas, Varsha, Astha, Rajveer, Vemuri, Banipreet, Miss P, Miss Kirti, Priyanshi, Harsh. Very happy to see all of you have answered it correctly. In fact, in the previous question, I asked that now nobody should give me date of payment or the wrong answer specifically. But I'm very happy Rohan has also answered it correctly, Rohan Nisha. So this is the time of supply. This is the last date for issuance of invoice because goods are being removed on this date. जिस दिन goods remove होंगे, जनरल केसेस में आपको गुड्स रिमूवल वाली डेट ही मिलेगी बट हाँ यू शुड नो ईच एंड एवरी प्रोविजन आपको कॉन्टिन्यूस सप्लाई के प्रोविजंस भी याद होने चाहिए आपको सेल ऑन अप्रूवल भी पता होना चाहिए आपको नॉर्मल सप्लाई में जहाँ पे मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स नहीं है वो भी पता होना चाहिए, बिकॉज क्वेश्चंस विल बी देयर बेस्ड ऑन दैट आल्सो. बट दिस case all of you have understood. Another case is there that goods are being sold on 10th, oh sorry, goods are being removed. Now it sold the goods on 10th June, that means it's removing the goods on 10th June. 12th June को इनवॉइस इशू करी और 5th June को उसने पेमेंट कर दी थी. रोहन, अनुभव, ईशान, मिस पी, एल्मस, प्रियांशी, कीर्ति, आस्था, वेमुरी, प्रकाश, प्रेम, बनीप्रीत, राजवीर, रोहन, then Nisha. All of you are correct. Rohan is not correct in this case. And Nidhi, you also have to see your answer. Pooja is right. Sunil is right. Let me share the concept. This is the last date for removal of goods. So invoice should have been issued by this date. Now, when invoice should have been issued by this date, actual invoice date becomes irrelevant because earlier of the two dates we are taking. That will be the date of invoice. Date of payment, we all have understood that date of payment is not relevant for determining time of supply in case of goods. Therefore, 5th June is also irrelevant. So 10th June becomes the time of supply. This is the last question for the day which we'll be taking. Gas pipeline question is very simple. We'll take it in next class. This is the last question for the day. Read it carefully. A machine has to be assembled and supplied at the site. This will actually tell me how many of you have attentively attended the class. So I will look forward to correct answers in this question. A machine has to be assembled and supplied at site. It is done by sourcing various components from vendors and assembling the machine at site. Okay? ये समझ में आ गया आप सबको. मशीन को साइट पे असेंबल किया गया, सबसे अलग अलग पार्ट्स लेकर साइट पर असेंबल करके मशीन सप्लाई कर दी गई उसी साइट पे, वहां से कहीं ना ले जाकर उसको साइट पर ही असेंबल करके सप्लाई कर दिया गया, डिलीवर कर दिया गया एक तरह से. 17 September is the purchase order. Purchase order was given on 17th September with an advance of 50,000 is received for the machine worth rupees 12 lakh. 12 lakh is the total consideration and entry duly made in the supplier's books of accounts. 20th September machine is assembled, tested at site and accepted by the buyer. इस दिन मशीनरी को एक्सेप्ट करके बायर ने बोला ठीक है अब मैं इसको यूज कर लेता हूँ, आपने बोला ठीक है मशीन आपकी हुई. अब 23rd सितंबर को इनवॉइस रेज हो गई और 4th नवंबर को बची हुई पेमेंट हमें मिल गई. अब हमें वी हैव टू फाइंड आउट द टाइम ऑफ सप्लाई. लेट मी स्टार्ट सीइंग द आंसर्स नाउ. प्रकाश, यू आर राइट. मिलन, प्रेम, अनुभव, एल्मस, अनन्या, प्रियांशी, मिस पी, शालिनी, ईशान, पायल, पूजा, निशा, नीरज, राजवीर, सौम्या, मीरा, वेमुरी, आस्था, वर्षा, निधि, वेमुरी, again Harsh, Nisha. And surprisingly, everybody's answer is correct. All of you have given unanimously only one answer, and that is 20th October. And it gives me immense pleasure or happiness that you all have understood the second concept of the normal supply also. You all kept asking me queries about that, Kirti. I was praising everyone for giving the correct answer. Why you have given 23rd October as the correct answer? We will not see seller's books of accounts because seller's books of account, Priyanshi, we have to see for date of payment. When I was there on date of payment, I told you that this concept is not relevant, but still we have to do that definition because composition supplier and supply of actionable claims is still relevant there. Otherwise, supply, this is all information is given to confuse you. जितना भी पेमेंट, परचेज ऑर्डर, सप्लाई एग्रीमेंट सब कुछ इररेलेवेंट है आपके लिए नॉर्मल केस में, बिकॉज यहाँ पे कोई कॉम्पोजिशन एक्शनेबल क्लेम्स कुछ नहीं है. यहाँ पे एक नॉर्मल सप्लाई है. बस इतना जरूर है कि आपको ये बताना है कि उसमें नॉर्मल सप्लाई के केस में यहाँ पे अदर केस वाला केस है, यहाँ पे रिमूवल ऑफ मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स इन्वॉल्व नहीं है. सिर्फ ये एक पॉइंट है मूवमेंट ऑफ गुड्स पे. आई गॉट लॉट मेनी क्वेरीज फ्रॉम ऑल ऑफ यू, बट आई एम हैप्पी कि ऑल ऑफ यू हैव अंडरस्टूड द कॉन्सेप्ट. And now you're answering it correctly. 20th October is the correct date because this is the date on which goods were made. Delivery of the goods was made available to the buyer. And that is why this is the last date on which the invoice should have been issued. And this is the time of supply. Pooja is asking how to present in the paper. Pooja, next class I will explain you. Please pose this query once again. With this, we come to an end of this session. We will take whatever is left in the next class. Please come prepared with this portion. At least go through it, revise it, and in case we plan any other class, we will see that. But I suppose if 3 classes are there for time of supply, as everyone is telling, then we would not be requiring an additional class. But I will be taking GST Titan quiz in the next class. So whatever concepts we have discussed today and we will be discussing in next class, based on that, quiz will be there. And we will revise, Varsha, we'll revise these concepts in next class. Don't worry. We will definitely revise these concepts, but please revise it beforehand also. That will help you. I will make sure that these PPTs get uploaded till the point we have covered them. And I require feedback from all of you on this manner of taking the class, because that will help me in continuing this way. Or should I look for some other way? Should some other way be resorted to? Some other suggestion you have? Please make sure that you give the feedback for this particular class. And next time we will try to have an uninterrupted class, and we will be in, all of you should be in full rigor, full enthusiasm to answer the questions, to learn new concepts in again a fun loving manner, through pictorial representations and full participation, full interaction as you did today. So many of you have written that you will be filling the feedback form, and I will be happy because that will help me knowing that what is the right track on which one should be there. Okay, so most of you are saying, in fact, all of you are saying this is good for us to learn here by PPT. This is good way as so many examples are taken. Thank you, Varsha. Thank you, Nisha. It is the best way. Asta is saying, Anubhav is saying, thank you, ma'am. Miss P. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, if you fill the feedback form, that will help me. Sunil is saying, thank you, ma'am. Soumya. Then, okay. So all of you are satisfied with this way of teaching, I hope. In case you have anybody has any suggestions, please let me know. With this, we come to an end of the class. Thank you so much. Yes.